For the record, my name is Brian Worrell, District 4 City Councilor, and I'm the Chair of the Boston City Council Committee on Ways and Means. Today is May 13, 2025. It is 10:04 a.m. This hearing is being recorded. It is also being live streamed at boston.gov/city-council-tv and broadcast on Xfinity Channel 8, RCN Channel 82, and Fios Channel 964. The Council's budget review process will encompass a series of public hearings beginning in April and running through June. We strongly encourage residents to take a moment to engage in this process by giving testimony for the record. You can do this in several ways. 1, attend one of our hearings and give public testimony. We will take public testimony at the end of each panelist presentation, and also at 2 hearings dedicated to public testimony. The full hearing schedule is on our website at boston.gov/council-budget. You can give testimony in person, here in the chamber, or virtually via Zoom. For in-person testimony, please come to the chamber and sign up on the sheet near the entrance. It will be taken at the beginning of the hearing following the panelist presentation. Individuals will be called on in order in which they signed up and will have 2 minutes to testify. For virtual testimony, you can sign up using our online form on our Council Budget Review website or by emailing the committee at ccc.wm@boston.gov or by emailing Karishma Chauhan at boston.gov. That is KARISHMA.CHOUHAN at boston.gov. You will receive the Zoom link and your name will be added to the list. When you are called to testify, please state your name and affiliation or residence and limit your comments to a few minutes to ensure that all comments and concerns can be heard. 2, you can email your written testimony to the committee at ccc.wm@boston.gov. And 3, submit a 2-minute video of your testimony through the form on our website. For more information on the council budget process and how to testify, please visit the council's budget website at boston.gov/council-budget. Today's hearing is on dockets number 0822 through 0830. The FY26 budget for the Boston Fire Department. These matters were sponsored by Mayor Michelle Wu and referred to the committee on April 9, 2025. Today I'm joined by my council colleagues in order of arrival, Council President Louis Jin, Councilor Flynn, and Councilor Murphy. I would like to now turn it over to today's panelists to introduce themselves and to dive into their presentation. The floor is now yours.
Thank you, Chairperson. First, I'd like to thank Madam President Lujan, Council Chairperson Worrell, and Councilors Flynn and Murphy for being here today and allowing us this opportunity to review our financial needs for the upcoming fiscal year. We're hopeful that we can answer all your questions, and we look forward to today's hearing. My name is Paul Burke, Fire Commissioner.
Good morning, councilors. My name is Rodney Marshall, Chief of Operations Support Services.
Good morning, councilors. Patrick Ellis, Chief of Operations Field Services.
Good morning. My name is Kevin Coyne. I'm the Deputy Commissioner for Administration and Finance.
Good morning, everyone. Michael Gaskins, Recruitment Officer for the Boston Fire Department.
All right, thank you. Can I?
Yes.
Good morning, Councilor Well, President Lujan, Councilors Murphy and Flynn. Thank you for having us today. I'm joined by my colleagues, Commissioner Burke, Chief Ellis, Chief Marshall, and Michael Gaskins. You know, I think the information that we're going to review today has primarily been sent to you. The presentation that I'm going to go over with you briefly this morning just highlights some of the activities within the department and some of the budget items that we're requesting for this year. So I'll just go through some of the slide. I'd also like to thank the Mayor's Office and the Mayor's Office of Budget staff and everybody that worked with us to submit this budget as part of our submission this year. So just an agenda of what I'd like to cover today. Again, most of these items were covered as part of the submission packet that was given to you. The budget status as of March 31st. The areas within our budget with the largest and smallest decreases. We'll cover staffing vacancies and a 5-year look back of full-time employees. briefly go over the grant review. We had a good hearing here a couple of weeks ago, and we presented all of our grant information. We'll go over just the submission for the lease purchase that we've submitted as part of this budget, if allowed, and talk about some of the accomplishments within the Boston Fire Department. The ones that we're there's many, the ones that we're going to highlight today, and Michael Gaskins will talk in depth about the cadet program that we have, the Marine Unit, and the Training Academy. And then lastly, we'll talk about some of the capital projects that we've been working on over the past several years and what's queued up to happen over the next 5 years. So this is the budget for, this is not working. Next slide. So the adopted budget in FY25 was $306,569,810. The budget that was submitted to the City Councilors today is recommended at $310,600,767. This represents an increase of $4,030,957. Overall, this represents a 1.31 overall increase in salaries. And most of that increase is directly related to collective bargaining agreements. And also, we had 85 firefighters that were previously being funded through a SAFER grant with FEMA, and that grant expired in March, and those 85 employees have now rolled over into our budget as of April 1st. This next slide, excuse me, it's very difficult to, a lot of information that's difficult to see, just really represents our budget status as of March 31st. And what this does, this lists all of the individual cost centers within the Boston Fire Department budget, how much was originally allocated, how much has been spent to date, and then what is available. We anticipate that we're on track to spend, almost everything that is listed as available on this. There are a number of projects that are still ongoing that we'll be working on over the next several days and weeks before we roll into June 30th. Another area that we were asked to highlight today was to show the largest areas of increases and decreases within the department. So this slide represents, the FY26 budget of what was recommended and the increase or decrease. So first you'll see the miscellaneous supplies and materials. There's been a reduction there of $619,000. Another one that there's a reduction is $193,500. And then the contracted services for transportation of employees is directly related to human resources and the MBTA program. There's also an increase in the lease purchase program, which really relates to the debt service of the existing leases that we have due to increases in interest payments that are due. The current charges figure represents an increase in lease space that the Boston Fire Department currently has. Right now, we're renting or leasing 2 areas of space for the Boston Fire Department. One houses a Special Operations Command Center, which is in West Roxbury. And earlier this year, we engaged with Public Facilities and the Mayor's Office and other staff to acquire the existing 12,109 square feet within the building to take over the entire building of Livermore Street. So that's an increase there. And the other is a 1.61% increase in just general wage increases, which again is directly related to collective bargaining agreements. Again, this is just, again, high level of what I just spoke about. A $619,000 reduction in supplies, $193,000 reduction in contracted services. And, for edification here, the contracted services line represents vendors that we use outside to perform work within the Boston Fire Department. So that could be, HVAC, electrical, carpentry, all the things that we cannot physically manage or maintain with the number of buildings that we have. So we outsource, a good amount of that to keep the buildings in the best shape that we can. And again, the bottom half of the slide represents changes, increases. So again, the lease purchase debt is going up by $231,000, again, beyond our control due to increases in financial costs of acquiring those bonds. Current charges, again, that is primarily the increase in the lease space for the Special Operations Command Center. And finally, the last line relates to the increases in the collective bargaining agreements to pay for our employees. We, like a lot of departments in the city, have vacancies from time to time. We do our very best to fill these as quickly and as possible. We do have a number of vacancies right now. Then we're working on filling these. There was two positions you'll see in the middle of the screen that we this year decided to consolidate, to eliminate because we had difficulty filling those, but we have a need to increase a technician at the Marine unit. I'm going to speak a little bit later about 3 new boats that are coming into Boston, but we have probably over 30 marine vehicles or vessels that are in our fleet. Some of them are very small and some of them a little bit larger, but we see the need with almost $10 million worth of new boats coming into the city that we need to have a dedicated engineer to be able to work on and diagnose problems and maintain them, and also maintain to make sure that their preventative maintenance is done correctly. So we're working on these positions, and again, this list changes, probably on a monthly basis. Over the past 5 years, this is a 5-year look back on our full-time equivalents of employees. This has also, it varies from time to time, and we're hoping it will stabilize. I think, I ran the numbers yesterday. I think on average, the 5-year average is 1627, the number of employees, and a lot of that has to do with, we budget annually for 120 people to retire from the Boston Fire Department, and then there's probably another 3 or 4 per month that are unplanned that we work on, as well as the civilian staff that retire from time to time. Grants, and again, we spoke a lot about grants a couple of weeks ago at a hearing here. Currently, we have 8 active federal grants, funded by FEMA, BJA, and the Consumer Product Safety Commission, and they total just over $3 million. And some of the grants that, we're working on, most of these are expiring 25, 26, 27. The first one is, probably the biggest one that we have, $1.4 million, and that has opportunities in there to provide training for fireground survival. It also has a huge component, which is safety, health, and wellness, cancer screenings, and all types of wellness for the firefighters. Evidence management system we're working on to improve our current lab. Progressive shipboard firefighting is, a new program that was offered by FEMA, which trains firefighters on, the correct protocol when working on a marine. Peer support is a grant that's funded and used through our EAP program. Hot work training is anything to do with, welding and permits and things like that. In addition to the evidence management system, we're also working with a grant to get our lab accredited. And we're working, for community-based, we're working on a program to install carbon monoxide and smoke detectors. That's a recent grant, which we have 1 year to complete. And the last thing is a Marine Firefighting Safety Training course, and that's for the command staff within the Marine unit. On the state side, we currently have 5 grants totaling just over $1.5 million for various things. I would say overall, most of these have to do with, supplies, equipment, and training related to, the training division within the fire department. With all of these grants, whether they're federal or state, the need for these to supplement, the funding that we receive from the city of Boston is really crucial for our success. We look for these. I have a really great grants team that is, looking to see how we can supplement, the budget that the city gives us, and also provide really good training and opportunities for our firefighters and staff within the fire department. As part of our submission for the FY26 budget, we generally get about $1.7 million that we can use for a lease purchase. We spent a lot of time over the past couple of years looking at our fleet and, replacing the aging equipment that we have. There are 2 units that we had targeted this year, and hopefully it will be favorably voted on to obtain these 2 units. One is H2 lighting unit, which is just under $500,000, and the other one is a specialty hazmat unit. Again, the age of these pieces of equipment, one of them is 10 years old or 11 years old, and the other one is 21 years old. So we are holding on to equipment, but it's time to replace a couple of these pieces. Next up, I'm going to turn this over to Michael Gaskins, who can speak about our cadet program.
Thank you, Mr. Coyne. Good morning again. We're excited. This is the first opportunity for us to present cadets in our recruit class. So in April, we had our first set of cadets. We referred to them as Alpha Cadets enter into the academy class. 22 of the 23 cadets in the class add, again, value, diversity, and representation from Boston neighborhoods, from Charlestown to East Boston. Some language skills are in there as well, and we're excited. They'll be graduating in August. Overall, adding impact to the diversity of our recruit class. In particular, we have 8 women, all of whom were cadets. That is a record for the number of women that we have in an academy class. So a testament to our program, and we thank you for the support for the City Council in the budget.
Okay, thank you. And so I spoke a little bit about, our current boats that we have. So this first one here is the new dive boat. It was just delivered just about a month ago. It's currently undergoing probably a couple months worth of training and final outfitting of the boat. It's currently being stored, or we rent a space at UMass Boston, and this will serve the harbor and the harbor islands throughout all year, but we're certainly grateful that it's coming on board at this time of the year as we prepare for the warmer weather in the summer. So the Boston Fire Department dive team, this is a 46-foot custom built to Boston Fire Department specifications. It was delivered on time and on budget. It represents really the latest and greatest in technology, and is a major improvement from the previous 30-foot boat that we had before. This vessel is replacing the Captain John Kenny. John Kenny was the captain of the Engine 24 and a member and advocate for the Boston Fire Department dive team. And he unfortunately passed away of occupational cancer at the age of 48 in 2007. So again, in another couple of weeks, and this boat will be fully ready to service us, for Memorial Day and all throughout the year. We have another smaller boat that's coming on board, July or August. Again, this is a 38-foot boat. Again, the latest and greatest in technology. This one has, a little bit different hull to be able to go right up to the shore or the beaches if anything needed to be rescued or for fire operations. And it is slated, again, late August, but it will probably take another 4 weeks or so when it hits Boston to be able to be outfitted completely and tested and trained the staff on that. So I didn't show the slide on that one. And the last boat that we have is the final boat. It's the biggest boat that we have. This is a 69-foot vessel that's going to be delivered in late September, early October, by the time it will be fully outfitted. Again, extremely proud of these 3 boats to be able to deliver these, certainly to the fire department and for the protection of the residents of the city of Boston. The climate change and the changing environment within the harbor and flooding. All of these items will enable us to be prepared for whatever, changes come with the environment. So we're looking forward to these. And the investment on all three of these boats was just about $12 million. So we are grateful for the support of getting that, and we look forward to working with these boats. Another one of the highlights that, and again, a lot of what we do is funded through, the City of Boston graciously giving us money to run the department, and a lot of other money that we get either through the FEMA or state grants funds our training academy. I don't know if anybody's had the opportunity to go there. I'm sure we could get everybody over there that's willing to go for a tour. It's a very impressive site. Not only do they train, our own Boston residents, but, it is a site for regional training for, recruit classes, around the greater Boston area. They handle all types of specialty training throughout the year. Elevator emergencies was one I know they recently worked on. They hold their state exams there. And then they do a great deal of, testing for within the fire department to make sure that the gear that we're using is the latest and greatest, whether it's new hoses and bunker gear and, thermal images, foam, et cetera. We also are working with them on a new document management system to, document everything that we're doing. So make sure we have, everything, in terms of training documents prepared and ready for, us going forward. And we're also partnering with the MBTA on, training firefighters on safety and evacuations. And, I went back, so I missed one. There we go. Capital projects, there was a capital budget that was submitted. We're very proud of the Engine 17 that was opened, I think in the fall at Meeting House Hill. We are on an apparatus replacement plan every year with 3 pumpers and 1 engine. The marine units and the dive boats I spoke of, very grateful for that. We're happy that some of the capital projects that we have been working on are advancing. Some of the highlights that we're hoping will get moving this year is the design of Engine 3, radio system upgrade, and that program is similar to, I think everybody's cell phone at one point or another has upgraded to 5G or probably even beyond that now. But this is the entire radio system that all of the public safety agencies within Boston use. So we are partnered with police, fire, and EMS, and we're updating all the radio equipment. And there are, a series of, I would say, communication centers all over the city of Boston that we share with police, fire, and EMS. And the purpose of those is to maintain consistency, redundancy in the event of any, catastrophic failures. We would have, coverage to make sure that people stayed safe. We're looking at some structural and engine repairs at Engine 9 and 21. We have a study on the replacement of Engine 8, and we're working on installing and implementing fire detection and emergency management improvements at energy management improvements at multiple fire stations. Again, a lot of the fire stations are older, and we're hoping to be able to just, be a little bit more conscious of how we control, the heat, light, power of those buildings, and moving to an electronic version on a lot of those buildings will save us a lot of money in terms of energy and, proper use of energy. That about wraps up our portion of it. We're here to take any questions that you might have, answer any questions. And again, we thank you for your time, and we look forward to working with you.
Thank you for your presentation, and also thank you for your service and dedication to the city of Boston. I would like to acknowledge that Councilor Braden, Councilor Fitzgerald, and Councilor Weber have also joined us. I will now turn it over to my colleagues in order of arrival for first round of questions, starting with Council President Louis Jen. Council, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for holding this hearing. Thank you to the fire department for being here and for all you do for our city to keep us safe. I have a few questions, and I think you answered them. Deputy Commissioner Coyne, about the increase in the total personnel services, it's 3.9, about 4. Is that all basically based on the contractual, on the collective bargaining agreement, not necessarily on an increase in the number of firefighters, although it seems like we did assume within the department some firefighters that were offline from a grant, but this is because of the CBA.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
There's 1.31, I think, that is not CBA-related increases, which are other general wage increases for other people within the department.
Would that 1.3 reflect the firefighters? Where do we see the reflection in the budget of those firefighters who were previously paid via grant? Would that also be in this 3.9?
Yes, it is in there.
Okay.
Yep, so those 85 firefighters transferred from the grant into the operating money as of April 1st.
Okay, thank you. And then I think you also mentioned this for the total equipment, the increase to 231, both in miscellaneous both in lease purchase and total equipment. A lot of that was Rivermore and being able to sort of lease out that entire building.
Yes.
And I just want to say thank you for that, because I had a lot of advocacy from the firefighters and talk to the commissioner and to Chief Irish, because it was something, I know that there was some stickiness in making that happen, but I'm glad that that happened. So thank you for making that happen on behalf of the firefighters who wanted to be able to use the entire space. And then I just want to say thank you to Officer Gaskins for your incredible work on the cadet program. The fact that we are getting women firefighters, and the only way that we're getting them is through the pipeline of this cadet program, is phenomenal. And so I just want to thank you. You have been so steadfast in your commitment to making sure that we have city jobs for city kids, and making sure that we have a fire department, and previously, before that, a police department that really truly reflected our neighborhoods. And I want to thank you, Commissioner, for your steadfast commitment to that as well. But you know, you've just been so steady on the mark, Officer Gaskins, and I just want to thank you and uplift the work that you do and how committed you are. So thank you. Thank you. One thing that we heard at the last hearing, one other budgetary question, Deputy Commissioner Coyne, and you kind of mentioned this. We had a hearing last year where a big issue was that we weren't able to find a lot. We had to contract all the work for like in-house plumbers, in-house electricians, and there was a number of reasons why we weren't able to attract that talent so that we could have it in-house, bring down the cost of contractual. Where are we making progress on that issue? A big portion was like the wages and inability to really compete with the union wages or other wages. So where are we there?
We've had success with that, Council. Thank you for bringing that up. One was a plumber position that we had last year, and we worked extensively with human resources, both at the fire department and in City Hall, to reclassify that job, the plumber job. And we also worked with the local union to ensure that, you know, plumbers that we were getting would be paid a fair wage of what the plumbers would be working outside of the city. And that person, I think he's been with us about 9 months. It's working really well. Awesome. And recently we went through the same process again for an HVAC technician, and that position, we finally did get it upgraded. That was a civil service position. So we work with civil service and HR here and at City Hall, and we were able to upgrade that position. So that's currently posted now. So we're hoping to, you know, with the increase in wages, again, it's more competitive because it's based on, you know, the current rate of what an employee would be making in the private sector with that. So we're hoping to be able to fill that hopefully in the next couple of months, and that will take a big burden off of the department.
Thank you. That's great. It's also like you increase the wages, but there's a long-term savings for the department when you're not contracting out that work.
Just that one plumber has made a huge difference.
That's awesome. That's awesome. We'd love to see it. I don't know who probably is best equipped to answer this question. We had a hearing, Councilor Santana, a few weeks ago. We were talking about a lot of the grants and how they supported wellness, and talked about the increase in rates of cancer as a result of job hazards. Where is the work of wellness and the work of like wellness and health for firefighters? Where is that reflected in the budget? I know we relied on grants, but is there anywhere in the operating budget where we are doing that work of wellness? And
so they do have their own separate line item, safety, health, and wellness within the budget. It's not really portrayed in here. I know org number is 221-600. And I think it's probably, I don't know the exact number, but I'll get it for you. It's super, the work that they're doing really supplements the safety, health, and wellness, and the grants that I spoke of earlier. I mean, just this past, in the past 6 weeks or so, we were able to partner with an organization using the grant money and provide cancer screenings, blood work, full body scans for, I think we did over 400 firefighters. And I know there was, a couple of firefighters that, the results were somewhat tenuous and they needed to, get immediate treatment or follow up their primary care. So that's the preventative work that they're doing. And the other piece that's really big, I mean, they have wellness. We have a dietitian that is part of that grant that provides dietary services for people that need assistance with that. And the bigger component is the safety, health, and wellness, so fitness, training, trainers, and new equipment in the firehouses. And certainly my subject matter experts, if you wanted to add anything to additional safety, health, and wellness work that you know about it, the work that they're doing. But it's...
Yeah. Thank you. And part I ask is because I think what was mentioned was mental health, and I want to make sure that in the operating budget, we're also addressing issues of mental health and not just relying on the grants. There has been an increase of mental health issues of sadly, deaths, and I want to make sure that we're addressing that from our operating as well as grants. So
that is kind of under the umbrella of employee assistance program.
Okay.
So that is also funded within the department.
Okay.
It's a very robust program of employee assistance.
Thank you. And I guess this question, would be for Officer Gaskins. Are there things that we're doing on the front end with the cadets, especially to address, long-term, if there are long-term mental health issues that we see, or what are you doing with the cadets on the front end to sort of approach the issues or challenges that the job may present and helping people, giving people the tools to effectively address those issues as soon as possible?
Absolutely. So our curriculum for cadets includes assistance with the EAP program. They're directly connected to them. EAP also comes in periodically to present if something's reported where a cadet has seen something or needs some assistance. All of our civilian employees are afforded the opportunity to work with EAP. They also work directly with safety, health, and wellness. We have fitness instructors that oversee their entire curriculum in terms of their health and wellness, and as well as taking advantage of the nutritionists to make sure that they're fueled and prepared in the right way.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you again to the Fire Department for all the work you do on behalf of our residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Council President Louis-Jean. I just want to acknowledge that Councilor Durkin, Councilor Mejia, and the Vice Chair of the committee, Councilor Pepin, has joined us. I'll now turn it over to Councilor Flynn. Councilor, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you to the Fire Department team for being here. Commissioner Burke, thank you for the important work that you and your team are doing. We had a very good hearing recently. Many members of your team were here. We discussed health and wellness of firefighters across the city. Also want to say thank you to certainly the fire department, but also to Local 718 as well. Commissioner, what is the latest in the budget as it relates to health and wellness? What are your priorities in this budget to ensure that the firefighters, really, and their families too, are cared for under health and wellness initiatives?
Well, we have a program that we just did for body scans that scanned all the members that were willing to do it to look for cancer and any kind of underlying medical problems that they have. We have a proposal that hopefully next month, in conjunction with Local 718, there's going to be a meeting with not only the firefighters but their spouses to go over physical and mental issues so they can discuss and have counseling and know the resources that they have when something is bothering them. In tragic incidents, we send out this CISM team. It's the Critical Incident Stress Management Team that goes to the firehouses where they responded and talks to them and walks them through and lets them know the resources they have if they want to talk to somebody. It's confidential and it seems to work well.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner. I went to the retirement dinner last week with some of my colleagues. We got there early and actually stayed late. And a lot of the firefighters, but even more importantly, their families came up to us and they were asking me and asking us about health and wellness for the firefighters' families too. So critical that we are including them in this important discussion. It was interesting, even though that they're retired, they're still advocating for their colleagues, younger members in the fire department, which I found admirable that they're doing that. So want to thank the fire department, retirees, for their incredible service to our city. Commissioner, you and I have met in person on site at the proposed South Boston firehouse in the South Boston waterfront, and we've talked, and I think it would be a tremendous asset to the community in the seaport of the South Boston waterfront area. Huge number of residents living there and workers as well. Can you give us a quick update on the status?
Yes, I've been chasing them for that too. They just sent me a text, so I'll
Okay.
get it to you.
You knew I was going to ask you that,
Yeah, I
Commissioner.
knew it. I'm as passionate as you about this. I want it to happen too. It's called Parcel U. The developer is in the pre-file stage of Article 80, and the PFD, which is Public Facilities, has hired an architect to begin the design process. In other words, it looks like it's moving along. So we're getting somewhere, you know.
Thank you, Commissioner. It's been good working with you and your team for years, and also the rank and file firefighters have been advocating for it as well. The residents, I do want to say thank you to my former city council colleague that worked with me on this as well, Michael Flaherty. So I want to acknowledge Michael Flaherty's work as well. Commissioner, the engine 3 in the south end, the area in and around the ink block, I do share it with Council Fitzgerald. Most of it is in Council Fitzgerald's district, Washington Street, Harrison Avenue. A lot of residential growth and high-rise buildings. Can you give me basically the same thing, the status of engine 3 in the south end?
We're in the design phase. I had a meeting the other day with three design proposals, and I picked one of them that's probably, there was a little issue with coming out into the side street, Waltham Street, because there's a water main there.
Yep.
So the city is generous. They gave us that property. We were going to build on it, but to move that water main was going to be too costly. So we're going up to 3 stories, and we're working around that, but we are keeping that parcel, the extra parcel they're giving us for parking and everything else. But it is moving along. It's in the design phase. And it's pretty exciting. I was a captain there for 8 years. It's a great firehouse. It's a tough intersection. It's very dangerous. So hopefully, if we cut off that street, Waltham, and take it a little bit, it'll cut back on the congestion of that intersection, because backing the trucks in with all those cars coming at you at the light is very dangerous. So hopefully we can make it a safer firehouse.
Mm-hmm. Commissioner, I was talking to retirees there last week and asking them what their plans were after retirement. But it was something that I knew about. But one of the retirees said to me, "Hey Ed, do you know the average number of years a retired firefighter lives is 5 years?"
Mm-hmm.
And I said, I thought I knew that, but I'm still surprised that that's the figure. Relatively a young person that retires, unfortunately, is going to likely pass away in a short number of years. I think of my Uncle Dennis also, that didn't retire, but he died as a relatively young man too in the fire department. And that's why I still focus on these health and wellness issues. But and I know we have these advanced, we're making progress with these, with the new firehouses. with the wash machines, with the super wash machines. But is there chemicals that will stay with a firefighter and bring those chemicals home after a shift, whether it's on their civilian clothes, their firefighter uniform, and that's common, isn't it?
It's hard to say. You don't know what chemicals are in what fire. Every fire is different. There's plastics, there's fuel burning. That's why we have the showers. We have wipes, bleach wipes to wipe their skin. That's why we try to cover their skin. Recently, years ago, we went to hoods to cover our ears and everything else, so the exposure of the skin is limited. We're trying to keep the gear that we wear in an isolated area in the firehouses. There's a lot of preventative actions we're taking to try to reduce that time frame. That's why you can't get rid of any firefighters, you know. We don't want the clock to start running to 5 years, so we stay as long as we can till you force us out.
Yeah.
So then the clock starts running, you know. So that's our theory on it.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Commissioner. And at that hearing we had last week, I did ask if there was any studies, national studies, about the impact firefighting has on the health of a family member, whether it's a spouse or kids, you know, and I asked that question because of the firefighter bringing those chemicals, unfortunately bring them home to their spouse and children. The answer was that there really hasn't been any national studies, but if anyone does see any type of study like that, or if anyone's interested in doing something that, I think it would be important for us to at least have a discussion and figure out what impact firefighting does have on a firefighter's family. Mr. Chair, thank you for giving me an extra minute to go over. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Flynn. I just also want to acknowledge that our union reps that represent our firefighters are here in the room. President Sam Dillon from Local 718 and Union Rep Randy Greeley. I'll now turn it over to Councilor Murphy. Councilor, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Commissioner, and everyone for being here. Also, President Dillon and Randy, you're here every week. It's good to see you for advocating. I know we all want to make sure our firefighters are safe, and thank you for the work you do. It's so imperative that we support on the council the work that our firefighters are doing across the city. So happy to be here at this budget hearing. My first question about civilian hiring challenges. You mentioned civilian roles are harder to fill, and we know many times it's because of salary, and then there's the residency requirement. What specific job titles remain unfilled for over 6 months now? And has HR responded to your request, like for any audit? Has there been an audit for these positions? And do we know if there's still many unfilled still?
I don't know if there's an audit, but the jobs are posted, and it's up to the individual seeking employment to find the jobs. They're being posted by HR all the time. So we go to job fairs. I believe Mr. Gaskin goes to job fairs and tries to recruit people for those jobs. And
has there been any movement on the city? Because I know other departments have been able to either make the salary more desirable, lift some maybe requirements that would be keeping people from.
I spoke of two examples of the plumber and the HVAC position that we've done. So, you know, we had 2 recent successes, and, you know, there's a couple of other positions that are on this list that we provided to the council today that we are going to take the same steps to work on upgrading. So what they do is, you know, we work with, you know, HR and within the Boston Fire Department and Central HR and City Hall, you know, the class and comp team budget, and we're looking at, you know, what is a comparative rate for somebody doing the same position outside. There are some implications. You know, I spoke about the HVAC position, which was a civil service position, and we work with the Civil Service Board to be able to upgrade that position. So we're going to continue to do the same thing, Council, on a couple of other positions that we're looking, you know, to fill, that we need to fill.
We need to fill. Okay, awesome. Thank you. Knowing that we've had plans to replace ladders and engines and different apparatus, how are we looking on staying up to date and on track with that replacement plan? And are we ensuring that we're going to be purchasing and issuing new fire engines and trucks as needed as they come up. Are we still able to afford that? And is
Yes,
that in the
so
plan?
we do have the replacement plan, in place. There's currently contracts in place, 3 more years for the ladders and 2 more years on the engines, and we'll be renewing those. The engine contract is going out to bid, later on this year. There's also 2 other larger pieces, a tower ladder that we're currently in the plans of developing a specification on that. Unfortunately, with some of the builds on these, even before COVID, it took 3 or 4 years sometimes to produce these. So that tower ladder truck, from what we're being told by manufacturers that sell similar units, it's a 5 or 6 year lead time on getting something like that. So hopefully by Christmas, we will have, a bid out there to be able to do that. But in terms of the other 2, the replacement program for the units that get the most use within the city of Boston, the pumpers and the ladders, we have a solid, plan in place. And that's been in place, I would say for the past 10 years or maybe even longer.
Okay, thank you. And some of this I know you touched on in your introduction or some previous questions, but the department reduced $619,000 in miscellaneous supplies and $193 in contractual services. Do you feel there'll be any impact on service delivery, and are there any safety or training materials that are included in these reductions?
I don't think there are. It's difficult to sit here today to see what the implications of that will be. Certainly, a reduction is a reduction, and we have to learn to live with that. We're hoping, with some of the other measures that we've taken, in the past several years to, streamline operations and some of the other things that we're doing, that we'll be able to absorb some of these decreases. So we're prepared.
Okay. With the 18 capital projects ongoing, which firehouses are currently prioritized for structural repairs? And have any firehouses required temporary closures due to poor conditions at all in the past 2 years that we would focus on?
No closures. We have engine 8, engine 9, engine 21 that we're working on some structural repairs with, in addition to other projects within the pipeline. The Commissioner spoke of, engine 3, which is in, design phase. There's certainly a new headquarters design phase that's ongoing, and a couple of other larger projects. One is the, the seawall at Moon Island. There's a sewerage program that's ongoing out there, and many of the other capital improvement programs really have to do with preventative maintenance within the Boston Fire Department. So that could be extensive, roof repair or replacement. Same thing would be for HVAC repair or replacement. So we kind of take those, as they come up, but certainly deal with the ones that are most important and the ones that either threaten the lives of firefighters or certainly the, residents and civilians that might be passing by a firehouse.
And I know you touched on, thank you for that, the plumbing, but we're hiring HVAC mechanic and a marine engineer to reduce outsourcing. What additional skilled trade roles could feasibly be moved in-house, do you believe? That could save us money long-term?
We have a good staff of electricians right now, so I think the only trades that we probably, don't have a full support of, we have one painter, and, we really don't have any on-staff carpenters, but so we do outsource, a fair amount of carpentry work. The plan would be nice to get a carpenter and some more painters on board.
Okay, and Michael, maybe this one's for you about the Teen Academy and summer jobs. Will the Teen Academy continue this summer? I think it will.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I saw people at the youth fair, yeah.
Yeah.
How many youth does that serve, and is it still connected to the youth employment funding? It is, correct?
Absolutely. We work directly with the Department of Youth Engagement. We're allotted 40 slots for the past few years, and we're able to find a location, usually a community center. This year we're partnering with the Boys and Girls Club, Berkshire. So we're excited about having that space and providing a great experience for 40 teens.
Awesome. And it filled quick, I bet, right? You had a lot of applicants.
We're in the selection process now. We want to give,
okay.
With the Reggie Lewis Career Fair this past weekend, we want to give all of the teams an opportunity to apply, and then we'll start making selections.
Okay, awesome. Thank you for that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councilor Murphy. The chair recognizes Councilor Braden. Councilor, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, everyone. Good to see you all. I'm just checking in terms of all the capital equipment, what sort of life cycle does equipment have? Do you have a depreciation schedule that you can predict like going out 10 years, what needs to come offline, and how do we manage the replacement plan?
In terms of, the overall lease purchase program, I think the way the city has it structured is, I think most computers are like 3 years, 5 years as vehicles and small trucks. A lot of the equipment that we're using in terms of apparatus, that's on a 10-year replacement plan for the most part. Other things, it depends upon the useful life of something in terms of, furniture and other furnishings. It really depends upon the item. A lot of the materials and equipment that are used within the fire department, it gets used hard. So, it probably wouldn't last 10 years where, a sofa may last 10 years in your house, but it wouldn't last 10 years in a firehouse. So it does depend. Yeah, and I'm really excited to see the acquisition of the new boats. That's really exciting. A while back, they did a study, fire department project profiles. I'm going back a bit now. Financial year 2008 to 2010, there was a fire, Alston Brighton Fire Station study. Do we ever know if they did the study and what were the results of that? That may be a little historic. That dated my time at the fire department. Do you know what engine that would be? I'm just 41. 41?
No. I think the council is speaking probably of engine 34 being reactivated with the buildup of Harvard property along Western Ave, where it used to all be vacant warehouses and whatnot, and now Harvard's building up. So they took a look, a while back about. Who did it? The city? Yeah.
Is there a plan to
I don't know if they ever published the results or you finished it.
Is there a plan to take a look at that again? Because Harvard, you wouldn't recognize the place, and it's going to continue to grow. And given that it takes a long time to get these things, is it possible to sort of renew that? That's going back 14 years now. Is it possible to think about maybe doing an Alston Brighton fire study again, a repeat of that again, just to see where we're at? I know the hazmat facility has moved. And then, I think we have had a conversation about just how difficult it is. Like north of the Pike, that area that's been developed so intensely is hard to get to at traffic time, and it's not the easiest. It's easier to get from Cambridge to there than say other parts of the city if you have a big incident to respond to, and you have the Pike as well there. Any thoughts on that?
Well, I think you should require Harvard to build a firehouse and put that in the permitting process and say, you build another building, you have to put a firehouse in here. The increase in the population that university is bringing to your community, the fire service is not stagnant. We need to take care of those people and the residents particularly.
So it would help if we had the study to solve them.
That's true. Yeah.
That's sort of an ask to think about going forward. Mm-hmm. And then Moon Island, are we see? I know this is improving the seawall. Mm-hmm. Is sea level rising? Are we seeing flooding and the impacts of storms and that over at that facility? Are we prepared for what's coming? Like a serious rise in sea level?
I've never heard of flooding over there. The wall seems to be at the height that it's. With the tides, it's fine, but there is a potential, yes. We're hoping the wall, Deputy Commissioner Coyne, is it a federal funded project, I believe?
Partially, but I think the work that's being done is just based on, deterioration of that, because the road runs along a large portion of that. Mm-hmm. So I think that's the primary reason. It was unsafe for people to even go out there, so they're fixing that. I'm sure they're looking at, I think we know there's a larger plan to, deal with, Long Island and Moon Island, and hopefully that is being considered as part of that project. Mm-hmm.
Very good. And how's it going with the programming study for a new fire headquarters? I know we always hear about how deficient the current
We were given several proposals from, I believe it was the Facilities Department, hired an architect. A pretty extensive cost to it. It was $800 million, I believe. It's a beautiful facility. I would love to see it start the process of building it. But
Do we have a location?
Same location we are.
Where you are at?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It'd be underground parking. We would move fire prevention from 1010 Mass Ave over there, so we'd all be in one location. So it'd be customer service off of Southampton Street. It's a beautiful facility, all glass in the front for customer service. It's really nice. But we're just in the architect phase of that.
So it's in process at the moment. And I'm not going to ask about the emergency generator.
You don't have to. That's there.
It's there.
Yes, thank
That's
you.
good.
It's been there for 2 years. I think
That's
I forgot
wonderful.
to tell you about it.
And then just thinking about, like I'll continue to advocate, like as you say, Harvard, we need to build a study would help us. But, you know, advocating with Harvard to think about when that whole area of Beacon Park Yards is hundreds, I think they have 150 acres that they're potentially developing over the future. Wow. So we're definitely going to see a lot more need over there. And then the hazmat facility, we loved having those guys and women in the neighbourhood. Where have they landed? Have they landed over?
West Roxbury, Rivermore Street.
Rivermore, and is that the old high school? I'm not familiar.
It's right. It's beside it, behind
Beside
it. Yeah, the Millennium
where it
Park.
is.
It's right there.
Yeah, yeah, and that's going well over there for them.
It's fantastic. It's a nice facility.
Yeah,
Yeah.
very good. And then battery energy storage systems. Have we? How I know that's sort of all in the sort of development process, just thinking about protocols and whatever at the city and at the state level. Are you able to budget for training and expertise in how to manage battery energy storage systems?
We're doing certain things. We looked at the automobiles. We've burnt cars on our own that were donated by the Volvo dealership in Brighton. They donated an electric vehicle. We burnt that. The training division is looking at the lithium battery process and trying to come up with a strategy. It's nationwide. All departments are looking at different strategies to try to fight a fire in a lithium battery facility.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think, you know, the best approach probably is to not have a lithium battery facility, but have some other battery storage system that's less risky than the lithium, because it does carry a huge punch in terms of energy release, and when there's a fire, it's very difficult to put out. So we might be just slightly ahead of the time for new technology in terms of battery storage, but lithium is what we've got right now. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Fitzgerald. Thank you, Vice Chair. Thank you all for being here this morning. I noticed that from FY24 to 25, we had a 52 reduction in full-time employees from about 1672 to 1620. I know there was just a big retirement. Is it mostly because of that? I just want to make sure there's not a drop for any other reason than other retirement.
Yeah, I think in general, the average number of retirees is about 120, and we're seeing that number is really low. So we're budgeting for 120, but we're probably looking at somewhere around 140 to 150 every year. So we're working to adjust those numbers in future budgets, and that doesn't include anybody that just decides to, leave on their own.
Right. Thank you. I know we had one class just start. Do we know when the next fire class starts at all at this point?
Yeah, November.
November?
Yeah.
Great. Thank you. A common theme from all the councils here have been the health and wellness, so just continuing to beat that drum. But in that, I know there was the O2X, and I think I asked about this maybe even last year, at one point doing the physical performance stuff, going out to firehouses and everything. Has there been thoughts of bringing that back? Or I think the answer last year was we looked more in-house to do it. And if so, how is that going compared to bringing in an outside person?
That's Health and Ladders.
Yeah.
Yeah, we thought it would be better bringing some stuff in-house than paying the O2X people. So we focus more on the Health and Ladders program that we have, and they run, I don't know how many guys, a few per district are involved in, and they go out to the different houses, and they have these challenges that they do weekly, monthly. You know, we just had like the marathon challenge and a rowing challenge, and they're really active with getting the members up and going and you know, into the firehouse. We've also, some of that money that we would have spent on O2X, we've used it to purchase more equipment for the firehouses themselves, so that we have better cross-training machines, weights, you know, the floor mats and all that. Gotcha. So I think it's very successful bringing it in-house.
Thank you. I know at Mass and Cass, which is in District 3, my district, right, there used to be a dedicated fire car. It's no longer there. Do we see a need to bring it back? And what is your current coordination with the coordinated response team and how to, you know, react to the issues that have to constantly occur down in that district?
I don't see the volume that it was when they were living there. So, I mean, we saw the ladder truck and the engine there all day, every day. And so because they've moved, I don't know the clusters, how big the clusters are. I haven't noticed the runs from those companies.
Yeah, the companies are still busy, but they're not like the commissioner said.
Yeah.
When the Delta car was there, they were able to relieve the frontline company to return.
Yeah.
The companies are still active, as you know, the area. You know, there's still people congregating in the area, but it's not like, as the commissioner said, when they were living on Atkinson Street with tents from the sidewalk, you know, pushed out into the curb and whatnot. We don't have the volume of calls that we did 2-3 years ago.
Yeah, the problem has spread out sort of more into the neighborhoods, and I just didn't know if there was still a role in that coordinated response that you all played besides, you know, if you get the 911 call to show up, right, and be the first responder. I didn't know if there was a deeper role. Because I really want to make sure that coordinated response team touches all facets, talking to everyone they need to be talked to, so that everyone has an understanding of what to do when we have to show up to that area. But appreciate your help there. Councilor Murphy asked about the replacement plan for the ladders, so we feel confident there. We don't have to go that further, but we feel confident we're on top of that in replacing all equipment. That's great. I do want to give a shout out to both an issue we just had this morning. There was a firebox down at Talbot in Washington that was sent to our office. And a special thank you to Michelle McDougall in operations and Janelle Finnerty in the Fire Prevention Division of Licensing and Permitting, who got right on it, and it's actually already fixed. Nice. So great work by your team. The Ashmont Fire Station status, I know that was in the pecking order, but it was sort of a little too further down to get to at any immediate moment. But do we know where that stands in terms of what we'd like to do, or a time frame anyway, like 5 years, 10, whatever, who knows?
I would like it sooner than that. We were trying to see how the parcel behind it was going. The guy wanted to sell it, and then he didn't own it yet, and I haven't heard anything recently on where that parcel stands. The footprint now is too small. We can't even put the trucks outside on the apron, so it would be ideal if we could get that parcel behind it and make it one big firehouse with all the frontage that we need. So there's nothing in the works right now to purchase it or renovate it. So. Great.
I would love to, because
I would too.
I don't want that parcel in the rear to get other plans.
Yeah, I think the owner knows that the city would like it, so he might be playing with the cost of it a little bit, you know. Right. But it's probably the #1 firehouse that needs to be replaced. It's an awful building. It really needs to be torn down and rebuilt. You know.
Any role I can play and help, please let me know.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. It's an important firehouse, important community. They're very busy there. They do a great job.
Yep. I see the grant money, are we confident the rest of the grant money is going to be spent? I read that there was a date that it had to be spent by. Sorry if I'm not on the right page, but I saw there was a expenditure date, one of them, from the grant money that we get.
No, we're okay, Counselor, on that. I think where it's more challenging is with the state grants. A lot of times those run with the fiscal year and the earmark. So, you know, the state submits their budget in July. Sometimes they don't act on it until November. You know, we don't get the contracts from the state until December. So, you know, most times we only have like 6 months to act. So when we know that it's going to go through, in the past couple of years, we've lined up what we need to do. So when we get the fully executed contract from the state, and we didn't get it this year until late January, we're ready to spend that money by June 30th. It is challenging though with, supply chain issues on a lot of what we're buying. It does come up from time to time. So we try to get ahead of it as best we can, but there are limits.
Great. So that 1.5, though, we're hoping that will be out of the door by the end of this fiscal year?
Yes.
Great. And could you please explain to me, I saw that 85 fire, I just don't know this, the SAFER program, that 85 firefighters were funded prior by the SAFER. How long has firefighters been being funded by SAFER, and what is that? I actually am just not familiar with that,
Okay.
so if you could explain SAFER to me.
Let me just, I have my notes on that. So SAFER was a grant that the Boston Fire Department and the city applied for, I believe it was 2020 or 21. And what that basically is, it's the Staffing and Adequate Fire Emergency Response Grant, and it's administered through FEMA. And it provides federal funding to fire departments and volunteer fire organizations to increase capacity and ensure communities have adequate emergency response staffing. The grant primarily focuses on hiring new firefighters. And, the way that, we use this within the city of Boston was, again, to fund, the ongoing retirements of the firefighters that would happen over the life of that. There was another opportunity a year ago to apply for it. We, as the city, chose not to proceed with that for a number of reasons, and we're hoping that it will come up again. So the 85 that we had on transferred off of the grant. The grant expired at the end of March, and they went on the city's payroll as of April 1st.
Right. And so, I obviously would assume that's a big fiscal hit, but
Yes.
Hoping to maybe reapply and get that grant in the future.
Yes. So, the increase in, the salaries this year, most of that was collective bargaining agreement work and the SAFER grant, the 85 firefighters that transferred from the grant to the operating budget.
Thank you, Mr. Coyne. That was an excellent answer. I appreciate it. Thank you all. My time is up, but really thank you for all you guys do, and we're here to help. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Vice Chair.
Thank you, Council Fitzgerald. The chair now recognizes Council Weber. Council, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. Okay, so for staffing levels, we're seeing a decrease in the number of firefighters, but I guess, how many firefighters do we have on duty in a given day? Is there a number, and then do we have enough to meet those levels?
We do. We have 264 firefighters on duty 24 hours a day throughout the city. We have 1,500 total. So unlike the police, they have to force overtime. We don't do that. So occasionally during the day, we'll hire a firefighter on overtime if they're short. They put their numbers together the day before, see if there's any calls, any sick calls or vacation, and then they make do by hiring some firefighters to bring the number back to the 264.
Okay, and so, is that number, the total number of firefighters, are you expecting that to go down next year again, or?
It's cyclical, yeah. It goes up and down with retirements, but that number in the field never changes. That's always at 260, and that's how it works. That's how we keep them staffed. It's based on each truck has one officer and 3 firefighters. There's 57 trucks, and that's how we do it. And we maintain minimum staffing all the time.
Okay, that sounds good. In terms of, we're talking about grants. I guess there's a training fund. I know firefighters, you have to stay up to date on all the techniques, and I thought there's sort of like a nationwide system of you can go to different trainings and places. Do we pay for that training, or does the funding come through grants?
It's a combination of the training that gets handled. A lot of it, the grant funding training that we are able to access that funding for, we provide training, and a lot of that training we also open up to other area cities and towns. But then there is also a component of training and grant money that we're able to access where we would send firefighters to get trained. And some of the items in this current year budget is, marine firefighting techniques.
Yeah, well, so I see that, I think the training budget line item is going down from like 8.4 to 5.8. Is that, do I have that right?
I don't have
Okay,
that.
well, is that going to impact the amount of training available for our firefighters?
I'd have to check that and get back to you, Counselor.
Okay.
I'm not really sure of that number that you just spoke of.
Sure, thank you. And then we talked, I think last year, about drones, using drones to sort of make sure the rooftops are safe, or are we, how many do we have, or are we expanding that?
I
How's that
believe
working?
there's 3 of them on the vehicle that they have, and they send it to all fires, multiple alarm fires. It's an unbelievable resource for the commanders so we can see in. We've gone inside of buildings that are untenable with them. They have some that go inside the building too. We can see the back of the building. They have a thermal camera on it, along with the video camera that shows the heat footprint and the degree of the heat from the roof. It's a fantastic instrument. I'd like to expand it as best we could, you know.
And I guess what in the budget would pay for the drones?
It's part of the operating budget. It's
Okay.
just, we have a couple firefighters that we detail there every shift, and that we staff it 24 hours a day. They're specially trained. There has to be a pilot and an observer. So,
Do they receive training on the, I mean, they have to go through something?
oh, absolutely, yeah. I think they have to deal with the federal government.
So most of that training is, tailored around FAA requirements of operating drones. So that training is usually done externally. They go somewhere for that particular training. And a lot of the models that the fire department has adopted train the trainer. So we may send one member to a particular training, and then they come back and train other members within their unit. And that goes across many different types of disciplines of training.
Okay, and so, yeah, I mean, it sounds like a great, use of the technology, keep people safe, so they know what they're facing when they go in the building and stuff like that.
Over water rescues, there's so many applications. In a subway system, it's just unlimited use for these drones.
Okay, and then we talked about, it seemed like part of the grant issue is, we hear about the federal administration targeting Boston, but a lot of the issue is the state withholding or reducing grants. Is that someplace we need to advocate more strongly for funding?
So the state has reduced the earmarks for training over the past couple of years. We don't know what it will be this year. It was reduced. I don't know.
The number I got was $1.7 million. There's the 2 houses in the state legislature convening to combine it. The Senate wanted, I believe, 2.2, and the House wanted 1.7. So I think a conference committee will meet and come up with the total figure when it's done, which is up from 500,000. It started in the millions, and it went all the way.
It used to be in the two.
Yes,
million.
and now
Yes, it
it
was.
dropped
Okay.
substantially. So hopefully we're bringing it back.
Okay, hopefully we all talk to our state reps. And I guess
Yeah.
we talked a little about this last year in terms of diversity in the fire department. I think Boston, 40% Black and Latino population. The fire department's been consistently like 27% BIPOC firefighters. I guess, what are you I think your response was like, well, there's a civil service law. We have to give, you give points or preference to disabled veterans, and there's a reason why that number just kind of stays the same. It looks like most years, going back 5 years, it's the same. I guess what are we doing to bring on a more diverse sort of workforce in the fire department and firefighters, and how's that going?
I think it's going well. Again, we are looking at the cadet program as a avenue to bring more balance to our classes as well. We work directly with recruiters, Army recruiters, military recruiters as well, to make sure that when people are coming from Boston, going into service, that they have a clear path and an opportunity to come back for a great job and a great organization. So we'll continue to do that. We're also exploring the hybrid pathway that has been passed through civil service. We're looking at that as an opportunity to have a local register where a commissioner or appointing authority can hire from that as well. 50% of the class would be from the traditional civil service selection process. 50% would be from a local register. So we would look to people with more years of residency and other factors that we might be able to impact the class and bring more balance.
Okay, can I just a quick follow-up in terms of that? I mean, is this, we're looking at some point in the future using this, or are we using it now, or what's the plan?
The hybrid pathway is something that was recently established through Governor Healy's signature in, I believe, October or November of last year. So we're exploring that as a possibility that could happen as soon as this next class coming up or a future class in the near future.
Oh, okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Council Weber, and also thank you for your work. I believe it was last year or the year before on the home rule petition that we passed to try to cut the cadet program, the time in the cadet program in half. And hopefully our colleagues in the State House can help us pass that as well to help increase the diversity. I would now like to pass the chair recognizes Councilor Durkin. Councilor, you have the floor.
Thank you so much, Chair. I just want to get into some of the nitty-gritty of things in my district. I know fireboxes are a big thing in Back Bay and Beacon Hill, especially in the historic neighborhoods, with oftentimes the tops of these fireboxes, the red lantern, go missing. And then they return. And I was just curious if there's a specific person we should reach out to get those returned.
I would do a 311 call on that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. And a really basic question, but who is oftentimes for BPS and IGR and other departments, we have a specific point of contact for a department. Is there a specific point of contact for the fire department that city councilors should be reaching out to?
I would do the public information officer. He would pick the right person, but I would start with him. You could do that through an email or call him. Brian Hawkins is his name.
Oh, thank you. And oftentimes, I think as a city councilor, we don't often know who to reach out to because we're often being reached out to when there's a really critical emergency. I just want to thank everyone who worked on this fire on Cambridge Street. I actually had to call it into 911. I smelt smoke myself. I was out there with other people on the sidewalk and we didn't know where the smoke was coming from. And I just have to say the professionalism of everyone who came to the fire and even just making sure that it just felt like they really cared that like all of the safety issues in the area were fixed. So I know for multiple days the residents weren't allowed to come back, but it's because it was unsafe. And I just really want to thank your team. And we don't have a ton of fires in District 8, but the ones that have happened in the past have been catastrophic. And so I'm just really grateful to your team for all that they do. So this is a tough question, but do you feel like the response times in District 8 are adequate? Do you feel like there's ever a delay due to traffic patterns, infrastructure, or construction?
When you say District 8, that's not our District 8. Where is this located?
Oh, so that's
Beacon
my
Hill?
district.
That's
My
District
district is
3.
West End, Beacon Hill, Back Bay, Fenway, and Mission
Okay,
Hill.
that's our District 3.
Yes.
Yeah, no, I think that the response time is very adequate there. They're pretty quick in that area. The one at the bottom of Beacon Hill on Cambridge Street, they're good. The other one is on Purchase Street. There's several fire trucks in there. They respond well, and then they come from other locations. There's nothing we can do about the traffic, but I think the response time is still pretty good.
And I want to talk about bike lanes. I've been a proponent of bike infrastructure as someone who bikes around the city sometimes, and also someone who I just think we need to be able to, everyone needs to get around the city safely. But there is this conversation happening about whether all bike lanes should be cast concrete or bollards. I'm just curious from the fire department's perspective, what is safer for emergency vehicles to get through, cast concrete or bollards?
I'd say the bollards. I've dealt with the streets person Joshua Franklin Hodge on many different streets, and he's worked with me, and he's met me halfway in a lot of, like, they wanted raised streets, and I was against that, and he accepted that because we have the aerial ladders that wouldn't be level to throw to the buildings when people need rescue. So I think the streets department is open to us when we ask for things when it comes to that. And they should be able to collapse if a fire truck has to go down. This shouldn't be made of cement. That wouldn't work out well for anyone.
Absolutely, and I think there's this is both fire related, but also emergency related and ambulance related, especially near MGH on Cambridge Street.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very against a concrete infrastructure there. I think most people who are on that street realize that bollards are the ideal solution. But again, we're constantly having these conversations in every single location. So I just wanted to make sure while I had the opportunity to be in front of this esteemed panel, I asked that question. So in terms of planning and infrastructure, how early is the Boston Fire Department brought into planning processes for major construction projects like Mass General's expansion or development, the Lyric building, for instance, in the Back Bay, that was the new air rights projects. So we have a lot of large-scale development in District 8, or we're hoping to. And just curious sort of what that looks like from a scoping perspective.
So the fire department's brought in fairly early, the BRA or the BBDA, excuse me now.
Or planning department.
The planning department does their thing, right? So then the contract, the owner goes to get a building permit, and it's the building department that issues that. There is a fire review portion that happens in the issuance of the, it's called the Tier 1 fire review, is done by the building department. The fire department, we don't do the building permit, but we do the systems in the building after the fact, okay? So the earliest part for us is, again, through the building department's Tier 1 fire review. And then the systems come after. But we are brought in fairly early for that because they don't get a permit issued until that Tier 1 fire review is done. And that's based on 527 CMR, the fire code.
Thank you. That's really helpful. And I know last year during this hearing, I asked a question about small business and just making sure that small businesses, are able to get a fire inspection sort of in line with their other, and obviously the fire inspection is like the last inspection. I just want to say that I have heard from small business owners a lot of great things in the last year about how much easier it's becoming. I do think that may be because we have less businesses opening. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if they just don't have, I'm not sure if it's less businesses opening or you guys are just doing a better job, but I'm hearing great things and I just want to share it because I think oftentimes in terms of small businesses, there's always negativity around how long something takes. And I just want to say, last year you all promised to work on that, and then this year people are saying great things. So for whatever reason, thank you, and I'll yield the rest of my time back. And again, just want to thank the hardworking staff and firefighters at the fire department. It means the world that on people's worst nights, you're there doing your work, and I'm really grateful. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Durkin. The chair recognizes Councilor Mejia. Councilor, you have the floor.
Chair, and thank you all for being here. I'm going to ask some dollars, not dollars. I'm going to ask most of my questions will be your financials because this is, after all, a budget hearing. And I also have some questions around some of your. Should I start all over? I'm not. Thank you all for being here. Excited to ask you all some questions. Most of my questions are going to be budget related. And I do have some questions around some of your diversity efforts. So just giving you a glimpse of what we're going to be diving into in my 3 rounds of questions, just to let you know, Chair. I have lots. So usually when looking at department data, you are able to see line item for permanent employees. And then a figure telling you how much was allocated to that category. And I'm just curious how much, was spent. I did not see the figure in the year-to-date spending sheet. So do you happen to know those numbers anywhere to provide us a snapshot of how much money we have spent on permanent employees? And this is really more around the fact that we've had some discrepancies around some of your overtime spending. And so if you've underspent, I'm just curious, or if you've overspent, just want to see how we're filling those vacancies as a priority to lower the reliance on overtime.
I don't have that exact number with me, Council, but I can get it for you. I'll have it for you later on today.
Okay, great, thanks. As of March 31st, 2025, the fire department spent 99% of the amount allocated for overtime. In FY26 budget, have there been any efforts to adjust staffing so that this is not another deficit in this spending category?
It's an item that we're looking at really every day, and a lot of it, and I'm sure my colleagues can speak better to this in terms of the firefighter coverage that's needed, whether a firefighter is out injured, or paid parental leave, or some of the other, challenges when, we are having to rely on overtime. We've made significant strides over the past couple of years in terms of overtime on the administrative side, and we continue to work at that. And we're looking at areas where we are spending a significant amount of money on overtime. Would it be worthwhile for us to fund positions to fill that gap?
Okay, great. In the presentation, we didn't see any mention of the large increase in the administrative budget. I believe it was around 89% from FY25 to FY26. Can you help us understand why that area saw such a large increase?
So I think it relates to the fire department was participating with FEMA on a SAFER grant, which funded firefighters, and that grant funded 85 firefighters and started around 2021. That grant just ended in March of this year, so the 85 firefighters that were being paid out of that grant were now transferred over to the payroll within the Boston Fire Department, City of Boston.
And just for those who are tuning in, you see how well he answered that question without having to look at his notes. That means you know your business, so I appreciate that. And there were also some other areas that saw decreases for FY25 to FY26 that I'd like to know a little bit more about. So the training saw a decrease of 29%. Fire prevention saw a 5.7 decrease. Fire alarm saw a 7.6 decrease. Maintenance saw a 4.9 decrease. And fire suppression saw a 6.3 decrease. So can you help us understand that?
So I can explain from where I sit, where I think those numbers are. So the numbers that you're given or that we're looking at today are from March 31st. So we still have 3 months left of the budget, and my goal is to spend all of that money between now and June 30th.
And how do you plan to spend that money?
So a lot of that is related to project work that's going on right now. So contracted services, we're having some work done in several firehouses throughout the city. There could be conditions of work that has happened and we just haven't been billed yet. So we work very diligently to spend that. Very
Great.
important.
So the full-time equivalency also shifts drastically from year to year. In 2023, it was 1625. In 2024, it was 1672. Then back down to 1620 in 2025, and then projected for 2026 is back up to 1673. And I know you mentioned in your presentation, but can you help me understand why these figures go up and down from year to year? And it's almost a predictable pattern. Can you talk to us about that?
So, good point. We do say there's somewhat of a predictable pattern as well. And a lot of that had to do with the way that the recruit classes were structured in the past. We did not have a dedicated time. So this class we just put on in April will probably be our last class that goes on at that time of the year, because then we were only capturing, 4 months, from a financial perspective before the new fiscal year starts. So with the new class that's coming on in November will be our month going forward when new recruits will come on, and that way we'll be able to capture, number one, the financial obligations associated with putting on a class, and also making sure that we're spending money within the fiscal year.
I got 2 more questions on the financial front, and I'm going to try to get them in because then I'm going to go to the diversity situation in my next round. So in the past year, we've seen wildfires have become more prominent issue in our lives, and even here in Boston, that I think, like a lot of us, aren't expecting. And I'm just curious if there's been any investments in the budget that seeks to address the increase of wildfires and just any of the climate issues that we are seeing across the country. How are we preparing for that? And then my other question is, I'm going to save for the diversity round 2. but for now, let's.
So I can't, say that we're specifically planning to deal with that, wildfires, but, everything, I think, fire prevention and all of the other things that we do are focused on, preventing fires as a whole, and we would, shift resources, to allocate for anything that needs to be done in terms of something new and trending that's coming up, and we've done that in the past.
Yeah, and then my last question, this is really more about our ability to get to where we need to be considering all of the redesign that is happening across the city, and I've asked this question to the EMT folks. Just in the response time, when I'm stuck in traffic and you all are trying to get to where you need to be, can you just talk to us a little bit about, or anyone here can talk to us a little bit about kind of like the impact that streets and the redesigns and all this is having on your ability to get to where you need to be? Have you seen a slower, response time? Are you getting to where you need to be? What are you noticing? Because I know when I'm in traffic, I get so like, oh my God, I can't move.
No, we're getting there. We are getting there. I have seen no difference in response time. We try to get to any emergency within 4 minutes, and we're still doing that. We're the best response agency in the city. So if it's a little bit more, it might be under 5, but we try our best. If not, we'll send a fire truck from another location. The people en route might say we're in heavy traffic, so the dispatcher will send somebody that is free that could get there in another route, but we have not seen a decrease in response time as of yet.
Yeah. And not that I want to add another lane, but I asked EMT if you all could travel through the bus lane just to get to where you need to be quicker, just because people are not moving it, well, at least
we make do when we're going, so I'm sure they do go in the bus lane.
Okay.
Yeah,
if
it's open, they're in it.
Whatever lane that you need to get to it.
They'll do it, yeah.
Okay, thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councilman Mejia. The chair recognizes the vice chair of the committee, Council Pepin. Council, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning, everyone. Thanks for being here. I'm a big fan of your department. Last council meeting, I was joking around how if it wasn't for my asthma, I wanted to be a firefighter. So I'm a city councilor now, so I'll work with you all on this side. But seriously, thank you all for the work you do. I remember last year, Commissioner, I went with a tour of all the firehouses in my district, and I was able to meet a lot of the firefighters, so just very grateful for the work you do. I have a few questions going back to what Councilor Fitzgerald said about health and wellness in the different firehouses and the firefighters. I'm going to lean on that. But also, I have a question about one of my firehouses in my district. I'll start off with that one. In Reedville, in the Reedville section of Hyde Park, there's a small firehouse there. I want to know, is that an actively used firehouse? If so, is it going to get any renovations soon? Because what I'm seeing in that part of Hyde Park is there's a lot more development going up, so a lot more residents are going to be coming into that section. And I've heard concerns about response time from EMS ambulances. I know it's not you, but I'm just thinking bigger picture here in the future, maybe that could be a bigger facility for both of you all to have a new space. Is that something in the line?
That's something I'm not opposed to. Absolutely. There's 2 bays in that firehouse. They could put an ambulance in the second bay. Yeah, I would be open to that. And that's an active firehouse. They go to runs, they go to multiple alarms. It's definitely an active firehouse.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll be advocating for that to be renovated sometimes in the near future, just because I foresee a good amount of residents moving into that portion of Hyde Park in the very near future. When I have conversations with local building owners, developers, business owners, I hear constant concern about the timing to get a fire examiner or inspector to go out to get the sign off on a new building. Who is that on there? How many fire examiners / inspectors do we have? And what's the biggest obstacle to fill these positions?
Yeah, so that falls under our fire prevention division, under the fire marshal, Deputy Colin Kelly. We probably have about 50 firefighters assigned up there into fire prevention. So oftentimes when there's a delay on the contractor getting an inspection is because they're not ready. All right, I was a fire marshal in my previous position, and I could see where a contractor would ask for an inspection to be done because they have a timeline based on what they promised whoever's paying them, the developer. They say, yeah, we'll have this done on July 1st. So they're coming to us June 30th. Hey, I need an inspection. All right. The city's very active building, so there's inspections being done every day. We try to work our best with the community, with the developers to get things done. But when they're disingenuous with us that they're ready for an inspection, we're just showing up just to fail them. You know, and that takes us away from being at a place where someone is ready for an inspection. So we're very proficient. We're very good at what we're doing, but we're not going to turn our eyes to something that's not worthy of a passing grade.
Right.
You know, again, we're very good at what we do at fire prevention.
Okay, well, that's good to know, and I figure that's part of the reason. I kind of want to know is there any openings for those positions, or do you guys feel like you're short-staffed there? Would you advocate for more?
I think we're very adequate up there right now. I don't believe we're short-staffed at all.
Okay, thank you. And in regards to the HVAC, I was reading through the facilities department review, and I see that there's an opening for an HVAC tech in that department. I want to know, when are you guys looking up to fill that role? And also was reading that there's about $910,000 for HVAC repairs at various stations, but has seen no activity with the public facilities department for at least 2 years. Something about this money being withheld. What's the holdup on that?
So I can just speak to your first point with the HVAC technician. That is a position that has been vacant for a few years, and for the past year and a half or so, we have worked with the Civil Service Department and the City of Boston HR Department to rework that job. The problem that we were having is it was not paying enough based upon the current rate for a technician of that caliber working in the City of Boston. So we did finally upgrade that with Civil Service and HR, and it's currently posted now, so we're hoping to fill that. In terms of the what you're speaking of, Councilor, is the capital budget for HVAC, and a lot of the capital projects were suspended for the past couple of years, but they are all being renewed this coming year. So we're hoping to be able to, kick back in with all of those plans and do a lot of building repair as the funding becomes available again.
That's good. So the money hasn't been compromised?
No, it has not.
Okay.
No.
Okay, good. That's good to know. And the last question I have is, has the fire department created an industry standard cleaning schedule for all firehouses?
So there currently is an industrial cleaning program that the fire department, works through. It depends on how many we can do in the course of the year, but the goal is for us to do 3 of those firehouses per year, and it involves, we call it industrial cleaning, but it's more than that. It also entails kind of an overall sweep of the entire building, where the most important piece is the ventilation system gets cleaned, but there's also power washing, painting, all types of repairs that happen as part of that too. So we are continuing with that program.
Gotcha. No, thank you. I like to prioritize my questions on HVAC and cleanliness and health, just because of the reason why I even told you why I'm not a firefighter. It's because of my asthma, but also just hearing, I think one of my council colleagues mentioned that the average life expectancy after retirement is 5 years. So I just want to make sure that your firefighters are being taken care of with their health, and I've heard a lot of cases in my district where there's a lot of widows that have experienced some trauma, and your firefighters deserve to have the best treatment in the city. Thank you all so much for the work you do to the union. Thank you all so much for the work you do to the firefighters that live in my district. Thank you. That's it for me, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilman. And just want to acknowledge that we've been joined by Councilor Coletta Zapata. The chair now recognizes Councilor Coletta Zapata. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you all so much for being here. I apologize for being late at prior commitment in district, but I have been listening in, and my staff has been listening in as well, and so I'm grateful to my colleagues for a lot of the questions they asked, specifically around health and wellness of firefighters and just making sure that your folks are taken care of, because as we know, firefighters are superheroes. They run into burning buildings, and being a participant in the training exercise that took place on the Common, I was just talking about this the other day, how incredibly scary it was to suit up, and even though it was a fake fire, it certainly gave me perspective. And so
Just want to thank all of the firefighters in my district and everywhere in the city of Boston. And thank you all so much for the work you do. Commissioner, it's been great working with you. I really appreciate our partnership, and just the leadership that you've shown has been exemplary. And so I just want to say thank you, and thank you to everybody sitting up here. As we know, in my district, we've seen a lot of fires. We are seeing dozens of people displaced due to the fact that there are whole families living in units. One question that I've gotten from my constituents is just asking about the causes, if there's anything that you can share generally about some of the causes of these large fires that have taken place within the last 2 to 3 years, and if it has anything to do with the number of people living within a specific building.
I would think the large occupancy is a factor. I think that people need a lot of utilities, and they could be running electrical wires in areas that are not meant to be running. They can trip over them, they can be frayed. What else is going on?
Rear porches.
The smoking and barbecues on rear porches. Summer comes, that's all we hear. Smoke showing from the rear, because people are cooking and the porches catch on fire. Or people that stand out there and smoke, throw the cigarettes on the wooden rear porches and start the fires out that way. So, yeah, I would be careful with any kind of smoking material and cookout grills. And know your exits, know what's your building. I mean, those East Boston fires are tragic. That poor kid last year, and that was devastating. And that it was going pretty bad when the firefighters first arrived, and they were right down the street. So that got a lot of headway, and it was a tragic event. So, yeah, I would just be careful with any kind of electrical device. I wouldn't, if you were charging a phone, I wouldn't put it on a combustible material, a bed or anything like that, you know, because they heat up, the batteries heat up. The scooters shouldn't be inside because when they're charging them, they heat up. Things like that. No open gas cans, no gas cans inside. So.
Thank you, and it really was tragic last year, and again, just want to thank everybody that came together and supported those families and the immediate response in the weeks afterwards. And that includes Gary Cullinane and the other individual who I'm so sorry, whose name I'm forgetting. He's a younger guy.
I don't know who's with the Lieutenant Cullinane.
Okay.
We have a team, the victim is assistant unit, so there's probably 6 or 7 people it could be.
They do a great job.
It was a younger kid that has been to East Boston many times that I've seen at 1, 2 in the morning out there.
Might be Flaherty.
Yeah, he's been great. How many? So you have 6 to 7. That was my next question. How many folks in the victims assistant unit?
They're normally assigned to regular headquarters duties, and they go out on the victim's assistant as a per needed basis when the fires occur. So yeah, there's probably about 6 or 7 members that will do that job and go out to the fire scene and assist in the recovery efforts in the initial stages.
Okay. And do any of those individuals speak another language?
I want to say yes, but I mean I don't speak another language, so it's not like I've ever had conversations with them. But we have a diverse department, Okay.
And I do appreciate ONS always being there in my staff, and I'm learning Spanish very slowly, but I am trying my best to be able to meet my constituents where they're at and speak their language. I do think that is something that should be looked into. I know that they do great work and they assist where they can, but and we are doing the most that we can to diversify the fire department, but that's just something that I noticed on scene in an emergency. It is vitally important. So just wanted to call that out.
They do have access to interpreters through the dispatch center, so they could call and have it done on the phone.
Oh, excellent. I didn't know that there were interpreters on call.
Absolutely.
Okay, great. Going back to the causes of fires, I did ask last year for, and I think that we received it, educational materials in all languages for folks that we can disperse out, outlining some of the things that you had just talked about, things with the cell phones and not having a barbecue, which I think would be common knowledge, but not having a barbecue on a wood deck or anything like that. Are those things that are readily available that we can share out to our constituents on our social media and newsletter?
We do have an education department. Lieutenant Perkins runs it from the Fire Prevention Division. He does make public appearances. Maybe we could set up some public appearances in East Boston. Community centers, he goes into the elementary schools and he talks to the elderly in the community centers. So I'll tell him to focus on East Boston See if you can get over there more often, maybe bring a bilingual firefighter with them.
Yeah, that would be great, and even something like a flyer that we can just put in all the WhatsApp groups that are created in the community by community, that we can just put there. It's just a couple of flyers that we can put together and send out. That would be great, in addition to the appearances.
Oh, good.
Fire inspector, is this something that is within your department? I'm sorry, I should know this, or is that within ISD? Okay.
That's fire department. He was the fire marshal.
How
That's
many?
the fire department.
How many inspectors do we have?
Same answer as I said earlier, about 50.
Okay, 50.
50, yeah. We have about 50 fire inspectors up to work under the fire marshal at 1010 Mass Ave in the Fire Prevention Division.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry that I missed that question as I was
Oh, I'm
going in
sorry.
and out at my previous engagement.
But every member of the department, under the direction of the commissioner, in January when the order goes out, is able to, if they see something, we can write abatements. You see something wrong, you don't just need an inspector. So every member of the department is a de facto fire inspector.
I think what we had heard is that folks are building out their units, or they're building a home, or they need something within their own home that inspected, and it's taking a little bit of time. Is there anything or any clarity that you can provide on that particular point?
So every case is different, okay? So when you put an addition on, you're working with the building department and the fire department. We come towards the end of it, right? When you're looking for that certificate of occupancy, all right, and it depends on the scope of the work that you did. Did you just do sprinkler work? Did you do fire alarm work? Did you do stairway pressurization work? You know, each one of those is a separate discipline. We inspect the systems, okay, at the end. I don't think there's a delay in these things. Oftentimes, there's a process. When you to get the permit from the fire department and us to sign off, you have to have an engineer review done first, okay? It's not just the inspector goes out. Our engineers first have to take a look at your plans, make sure that they're code compliant, and that what you said you're doing or what you're doing is going to, meet the code compliance test. All right. If once they sign off, then you set up an inspection with our actual inspectors. One of the 50 assigned up there. They'll go out and perform functionality tests to make sure that everything works as designed. All right. So when people wait to the last second to do this, they often find, hey, well, I didn't know I had to get a plans review done first. They just think that they can call us up and have an inspector go out and just sign off. That's where a lot of the time the frustration comes, because I saw it when I was up there. But people just aren't aware. So the city, in its forethought, has put together a new permitting czar. Mackie is her name, and she's trying to streamline some of those efforts, okay, and get the information out to our customers, the public, on what they need to do when they need a permit from the fire department, when they need a permit from ISD. All right, again, we work together when we're issuing, because we sign off on it, but then ISD is the one that actually issues your certificate of occupancy, if that makes sense. So it's a total team effort. It's just getting the knowledge base increased out into the public on what it takes to be code compliant and the time frame you need to get all this done. Again, it's not an overnight situation.
Thank you. And just very quickly, do you have an average response time, or how long it takes to, when you have a work order on this point, for example, and then to the finalization of it, you get that check and then it goes back to ISD?
No, because every project's different. You might be just putting on rear porches or something like that, or a small addition, an ADU in your basement or in your backyard. That would be a little bit quicker than, say, building a brand new 3-decker. Or something like that, that will have sprinklers in it now, and a central station alarm. You can't put a timeline on how long it should take, because the scope of the work is what dictates the time. The larger the work, the longer process it will be.
Right, I understand that. I think it's when the builder is saying, okay, this is ready for your inspection, and then the response time from there to when somebody goes out there.
Well, when did they put in their plans to get engineer review? You know what I mean? They say they're ready, but they're also, I want to be put to the front of the line. You know what I mean? The Fire Prevention Division, they're busy. We've got a plans review office. with our engineers. They do the review of this stuff. Again, sometimes the contractors promise someone a job done by a certain date. Delays or whatever come into it, and then at the end, they blame the fire department for not signing off on them in a timely fashion when it's not the fire department that caused their delays in the beginning. All right, we have a very proficient fire prevention division. They're very good at what they do, but they don't cut corners. All right, they don't put the public safety in jeopardy to assist a contractor that, might have not been ready for the inspection to begin with.
Right, right. And I'm just trying to understand and educate myself about the operational nuances of everything, because I'm fascinated with trying to get the systemic maybe issues that are not just with the fire department, but the permitting systems. Like, is there a reason why the ISD came here? Commissioner Del Rio talked about the fact that she was able to cut down certain response times by shifting certain things. So,
well, they are looking at that. Like I said, with Mackey there, the new permits, they're looking at ways that they can streamline or get the education out to the public on what they need to do to get a fire permit issued in a quicker manner without cutting corners.
Right, as we never want that to happen. Thank you, Chair. You've been very generous, so I appreciate it. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Councilor. Letters about my first question. Well, thank you again for being here. Also, thank you for your service. Also, just want to thank my council colleagues for all their good questions. Looking at contracts, my question is two parts. One, does the Office of Equity play a role in your selection committee in terms of RFP and contracts?
What type of contract are you talking about?
The contracts that are being awarded to different businesses.
Oh, the contractors.
Right, the contractors.
Yes, they do. Yes, Kevin?
Yeah, so, Councilor, we partner with the City of Boston Procurement Department, and we use all the equity and inclusion tools available to them in terms of making sure that we are reaching out to small, local, minority, diverse businesses of all kinds. They don't participate in the review of that once the bid opens, but we've been very successful in securing minority and women-owned businesses to participate in our bids and, being awarded many.
Awesome. Just some encouragement. Would love to see if we can improve the equity in contracting from the BFD, from the fire department. Just some encouragement there. When it comes to overtime, overtime went from $36 million in FY23 to $46 million in FY24. It's trending slightly better through FY25 at about $10 million per quarter, but it's still a large amount. I know we talked about this in the past, about the factors that go into why the overtime. Can you just reiterate those factors again?
Yeah, so again, a lot of that is contractual, that, we're required to have, I think the commissioner said 250 somewhat firefighters on every shift within the city of Boston. For various reasons, from time to time, firefighters are out either injured on parental leave or other leaves, vacation, so we have to provide the coverage. So, most of the overtime that is occurring is to provide that additional coverage when somebody is not on the job. In terms of the other, we look very closely at that as ways of, that we can eliminate or cut down the use of overtime, but it is beyond our control for the most part because of those contracts.
All right, and would adding more firefighters cut down on overtime?
I suspect it would. I don't know, what that number would be in terms of adding firefighters, what it would take to reduce the overtime. Regardless of adding more firefighters, I still think, if we're adding more, we'd still be adding more of the benefits that the firefighters would be, able to take, whether it's parental leave or sick leave, vacation, and those are where, we're filling the gaps with overtime to cover those particular, shortages.
And what is the average hours worked per week by those assigned to each vehicle?
42.
42. And I know last year we tried to pass a fire victim fund in ONS last year. to help those that are displaced by fires. What role does BFD play in support after the fire for fire victims?
Well, they just do the neighborhood services. In conjunction with neighborhood services, they go to the fire afterwards. They secure lodging for a short period of time through the Red Cross or neighborhood services. And they follow up and make sure everybody's all right, everybody's accounted for. Their role is minimal, probably lasts a day.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, all my colleagues asked a lot of amazing questions. Now I'd like to go to public testimony. When you hear your name called, please come to one of the two microphones. Please state your name, state any affiliation or residence, and you'll have 2 minutes to testify. Now I'd like to call Sam Dillon, the president of Local 718. The floor is now yours.
Chair, good morning. Members of the committee, members of the command staff, thank you for the opportunity to address this body today. I want to start off by pointing out this isn't where the rubber meets the road, but this is where the entire process starts of doing what is absolutely and fundamentally necessary to supporting the Boston Fire Department, but more importantly, the men and women who serve as Boston firefighters. We simply cannot do our job the way that it needs to be done to the best of our ability without the support of elected officials in this city and our command staff. Training, resources, fire apparatus, everything that we have is essential to the services that we provide. And I do want to make sure we're focusing on the most important of those resources, which are our personnel. All of the technology in the world, all of the equipment that we could possibly hope to procure, at the end of the day, it's a Boston firefighter who puts the fire out. At the end of the day, it's a Boston firefighter who enters that building to conduct search and rescue operations. They need to have these resources. They need to have the cutting edge equipment, but we can't lose sight of the most important tool, the most important resource on the fire ground is that firefighter. And that firefighter needs to be physically fit, mentally sound, healthy, which underscores the importance. And it was great to see discussion and questions asked about the safety, health, and wellness and the wellness initiatives of the department. Just like we maintain fire apparatus, just like we maintain the tools that we use, we have to focus strongly on maintaining the serviceability of our firefighters. And all of that work starts right here. And I appreciate the counselors who, over the past several months especially, have really started to address more of the inside track of the profession of firefighters. Thank you for attending that retirement dinner, and thank you for bringing up some of those points here this morning. This is an incredible job. This is not just a profession, it's a calling. But one of the things that makes it what it is that it's comprised of men and women who have sworn an oath and worn a badge to put their mental health, their physical health, and their very lives on the line for strangers, people that they've never met. And that can't be overlooked. Yes, this is an incredible job. It's also a brutal job. It's mentally taxing. It's physically demanding. So when you see a Boston firefighter, regardless of their age, regardless of their assignment, you're looking at a man or a woman who they will not live as long as they otherwise would have had they not chosen to undertake this calling. We talked, the life expectancy of a retired Boston firefighter is 5 years. You would be hard-pressed to find any other profession where you have a retirement life expectancy of 5 years. Like I said, there's no other job like this in the world, good and bad. And I thank you for the first time since I've been on this job, we're starting to have these conversations publicly. And it's been a long time coming, and we need to continue. Like I said, incredible job, dedication to service, physically, mentally demanding, and deadly at times. I appreciate the advocacy of this council. I appreciate the command staff's attendance here today. As always, as president of Local 718, our phone is always on, our door is always open. We welcome any conversation that can be had to benefit the livelihood, working conditions, wages, and lives of our members. Councilors, thank you very much.
Thank you. I'll now go back to council colleagues for second rounds of questions, starting with Councilor Flynn. Councilor, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, thank you to the fire department team that is here. Commissioner, at the retirement banquet, one of the firefighters, it was actually a younger man, said to me, he didn't retire, he was still working, he was helping out. He said to me, Ed, what's the status? Are you guys on the city council trying to take away the requirement to have added egresses? Right now, you have to have more than one egress to get out of an apartment or a building. There was some discussion, whether it was here in Boston or other cities, to limit that to just one. And I said, I don't think that's a serious conversation. I don't think that's going anywhere. I said, we can't have just one egress in an apartment. That's a recipe for disaster. It'll put people's lives in jeopardy. This is what the firefighter was telling me, and which I agree. But the fire department would never support watering that down, Commissioner, right?
No, it would have to go through fire prevention. It would have to go through the fire prevention code. That would be impossible to do. We would propose that at every step of the way. That's not going to happen.
Good. I'm glad that I don't even know why we would potentially have the discussion here in this body.
Yeah.
So thank you for that. I do see first responder vehicles that have been stuck in traffic for periods of time, extended periods of time, due to changes in the road, whether it's bike lanes or whether it's bus lanes, or I know we had that discussion earlier, but I have seen it on Tremont Street is one example recently. Was an ambulance and a fire truck. Literally sitting there right near Suffolk University Law School, literally sitting there for 2 minutes trying to get somewhere. I guess my question is, has anyone done a comprehensive report on response times to particular incidents and whether it's increased, decreased over the last 3 or 4 years? Has that study ever been undertaken?
No, it has. No study of that sort has been undertaken. I have not been notified by the field members that it's causing any more delay, but it's possible it has. I have not heard it.
Yeah, I have seen it many times. That's why I'm kind of a stickler for that. When I see a first responder vehicle in my district or throughout the city, just sitting there, and many people don't necessarily have any place to move either. The vehicles that are driving that just bottleneck traffic. So I'm not blaming anybody. It's just some of the infrastructure changes that have been enacted in my opinion. I'm a strong supporter as well. Anyone could take this. I'm a strong supporter as well for diversity. I respect diversity. I probably have the most diverse city council staff. But what are we also doing to ensure that disabled veterans are also part of this conversation and are respected? I think that's also important to ensure that we acknowledge disabled veterans for the incredible sacrifice that they have made to our city and in country. And I don't want to put anyone on the spot, but I realize it's probably politically incorrect to bring up disabled veterans, but I do feel like I have an obligation to do that as a disabled veteran. But is there any type of support we are also providing disabled veterans for the unique challenges that they also experience in their families as well?
Well, I just met Rob Santiago yesterday at a coffee hour, and I invited him down to the drill class to speak to the veterans in the drill class. He's pretty good at staying abreast of what's going on with the veterans, and he's welcome in the fire department anytime. He knows that. He's a good friend of mine, so I hooked him up with the deputy in training, and he's gonna go down with his assistant and speak to the veterans in the drill class that are currently in there now.
Commissioner, when that is scheduled, could I also attend?
Sure,
I'd love to go. I have a good relationship with Rob as well.
Yeah.
I'd love to be part of that.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Yeah.
and I'll make sure.
Councilor Flynn, if I might add,
Yep.
when this whole conversation and national conversation around diversity, I'm not sure why veterans aren't included in that, which they are included for us. We're one of the largest employers of veterans within the city, of course. But it's a protected class. Veterans are a protected class, and our outreach includes targeting veterans and working with veterans to make sure that when they do separate, that they have a great opportunity to come on to the fire department.
Well, thank you for saying that. I appreciate that. And I agree with you 100%. Veterans are a protected class, and I've been advocating, not really on the fire department, but I've been advocating citywide that they should also be included in a lot of this outreach for whether it's employment or contracts. And I do receive pushback at times, but you are exactly right. Veterans are a protected class, and at times, people don't like to include veterans as a protected class, or do not like to have that conversation, which is discouraging to me. But as the chair of the Veterans Committee, I have an obligation to advocate also for veterans, and whether it's cuts at the federal level, federal government, or here in Boston, voting to cut the veterans budget. We have an obligation to speak out. When the city council did vote to cut the budget, city workers were upset and veterans were upset, but we also had a lot of strong union support for ensuring that we immediately readdress that issue. So I want to thank the men and women of the city for not giving up on veterans as well. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilor Flynn. The chair now recognizes Councilor Weber. Councilor, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. So I'd asked about diversity before, and you talked about looking at the hybrid pathway option and the changes to the civil service law. I guess that brings up one of the options is sort of, I guess, for 50%, correct me if I'm wrong, for 50% of new hires, they wouldn't have to meet the residency requirement. That's one of the options. Am I interpreting that wrong?
It's easier, it's tougher, the residency requirement would be tougher. It would be the same as the cadets, which is 3 years.
Okay, and so I guess that just leads into my question. So what do you, I guess, what are your thoughts on the residency requirement, and does it make it hard to hire people, retain people, or do you not give any thought to the residency requirement?
No, Mr. Gaskin here, he interviews everybody. I think his experience with the residency requirement is pretty positive. I think if you can be a firefighter at 18 years old, 3 years, you were at 15, you were in the school system, you're a resident. At 15 years old, you weren't living on your own somewhere out of the city. So, I think it works in your regard.
Yeah, absolutely. So with the hybrid approach, we would be looking at
really concentrating on applicants that have three or more years living and working in the city. Right now, it's 1 year prior to taking an exam, as far as on the traditional civil service exam, and that includes anyone that enlisted from the state of Massachusetts. So as a veteran, if you grew up in Marlborough, never came to Boston, you take the test, and now you have 90 days from separation to come into Boston. And so the hybrid approach gives us a little bit more of a balance in terms of those that are coming from the city. More often than not, these will be kids or young adults that have graduated from Boston Public Schools that have spent a significant amount of time here.
Okay, and then with which pathway you use, I mean, who can the fire department, the commissioner, can you make that decision? Or obviously you'll be making it, I mean, do you play a role in choosing this or not? Or is that just made by the mayor's office or the legal department?
It would be several entities that would make that decision. Yeah, I would be consulted.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much. Commissioner, I guess we talked about, road infrastructure response times. I just, in terms of my district in West Roxbury, just have any feedback on the impact of bike lanes, the road diet in West Roxbury on response times?
I have not had any from firefighters myself personally. It's possible there has been, but it hasn't got to me. Yeah, I haven't heard any. I mean, they're collapsible in West Roxbury, I believe.
Well, the bollards, yes. I'm just going from 4 lanes to sort of 1 lane in each direction with a turn lane. Has that impacted?
I haven't heard from the firefighters.
Okay. And then you did mention like raised, something being raised.
Yeah, the roadway where the bike lanes were, and I spoke against that, and the chief of streets agreed with me, and they did not do that.
Okay. Yeah, because I think one of the proposals for West Roxbury, and I'm just trying to make sure I understand this, is to make the bike lane, have the curb cover the bike lane so that basically the sidewalk would extend to, so the bikes would be raised on a sort of extended sidewalk, and that would allow people to park on the curb and instead of having to walk across a lower structure. I'm not, would that raise an issue for the fire department?
I'd have to look at the specifics on that. It's possible it would.
Okay. And in terms of the 2 firehouses on Center Street in JP and West Roxbury, are there any issues with those that we should know about or I should know about?
No, they're very active. They do their job pretty well, and they cover each other. If there's a fire in West Roxbury, the one in Jamaica Plain will come and cover them.
I meant like sort of from the capital budget. Is the structures themselves?
I think that
anything that needs work.
Engine 30, they're going to be renovated. Engine 30, the one in West Roxbury, is going to be renovated.
Okay.
Yeah.
And do you know when that's scheduled?
Most of it's going to be done before the end of June.
That engine 28 is
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Thank you. I didn't know did the timer start? Or am I already done? Oh, I heard a beep. I wasn't sure. Yeah, that's fine. Chair, thank you very much.
The chair recognizes Councilor Mejia. Councilor, you have the floor.
All right, so let's talk about my favorite subject. I'd love to have a better understanding. I looked through the PowerPoint presentation and I didn't see any slides around your diversity numbers, like how many women you have on the force, how many people of color.
Right now, as far as women goes, it's a very small number of women. I don't know if you were here, we just highlighted that the class that's going in right now, we have 8 women, which is the largest number in the history of the department, all of whom are cadets. So we are looking at feeder programs and opportunities where we can look at underrepresented communities. Firefighting is a very male-dominated industry nationally, and so we have a reasonable expectation for recruitment and a reasonable expectation for capturing women who desire this particular profession.
And people of color?
And people of color, of course, that goes without saying. Yes, ma'am.
So what are we doing? How are our numbers look?
Our numbers right now, I mean, we're holding pretty fast, around 26% people of color within the department. Our last 3 classes have held about that same number. And again, we're doing strategic outreach through our Teen Academy, through our other programs, doing recruitment at other schools, high schools, colleges. Now that we are getting ready to consider the hybrid program as well, we'll definitely be able to cast a really large net around underrepresented communities that reflect the city of Boston.
And would you happen to know the retention rate for women and people of color within the
we haven't separated, but we don't see any data that would support any differences. If you're a firefighter, we have a very high retention rate through retirement. People love the job. Again, as Mr. President said, it's a passion, it's a calling, and so once you've gotten the opportunity to be here and to be part of this culture, I think people are here throughout through their retirement, and we haven't seen any data that would suggest any early retirement or anything that would be along the lines of gender or race.
And can you tell me what it looks like for people of color and women to move up the ranks?
Moving up the ranks is I think a nuanced conversation. We have a lot of elite firefighters.
We have a lot of what?
Elite firefighters
that
are, in terms of being on, say, a specialized unit, I'll use, say, Tower Ladder 3 as an example. These are elite groups of firefighters that might have been on a company for about 7-8 years. They might not be inclined to take a promotional exam, because once they are promoted, they could leave that particular exam or a group. And so it's important to have, I think, a greater conversation around job satisfaction. The number of people that are going to take a promotional exam could be impacted by that. But we are seeing a lot of people of color, in particular men. There aren't a lot of women that are in that particular rank as far as lieutenant. So we are seeing some succession. We're seeing an increase in the number of people of color that are opting to take the promotional exam. But again, I think having a more nuanced conversation around job satisfaction and whether or not you'd want to take the promotional exam to leave a group like a Tower Ladder 3 or a Rescue 1 or something of that nature.
And how many people of color are in positions of power?
I don't understand that question.
Well, who are, in higher ranks?
We could provide a detailed number at each rank.
Do we have a ballpark figure, 5, 6, 7, 8?
No, I don't have a ballpark figure, but
and so no one is monitoring that data? No one is looking at whether or not people of color are moving up the ranks?
We are looking at our overall diversity, and so we can provide this council a detailed outlook on diversity at each rank.
Yeah, so for the record, I'd like to get that information as part of our processes here, just because I think one thing is to get us in there, and the other is to make sure that we're moving on up, literally, and opportunities. And let's talk a little bit about the climate and the culture of how particularly firefighters of color feel within your organization. What's that look like overall?
I would say anecdotally, because again, I want to, for the record, again, I'm not a firefighter. I'm the diversity recruitment officer.
Can you talk about it? Because you got one mic, so y'all can share it. So let's go.
So in terms of people feeling comfortable in being on the fire department and taking promotional exams, I think that's we're all on the even keel. I think it's more internal of what you want to do with your own personal career. Once you get on the fire department, as Mr. Gaskin said, there are some of these elite groups like the rescue company, tech training companies. Those in of themselves are special groups that people tend to migrate to, because they have that, if you want to put more esteem on that of being a firefighter in those particular groups. But in terms of promotions, again, I think that's a personal, internal thing that a person has to want to move up. I don't think there's any parameters within the department structure itself of preventing people from taking an exam. Everybody can sign up.
Yeah.
Everybody has an equal opportunity. And
I have to beg to differ on that piece. Having been in this chamber for almost 5 years, I think the biggest complaint that I hear from firefighters of color, and I appreciate Councilor Clara Zapata's question about language and accessibility, just because I don't feel like a lot of firefighters of color feel like they have an easy way up. And so they may not opt to take, there always seems to be a strain there. I mean, maybe that's just what people are experiencing and it may be different for everybody, but I just want to name that firefighters of color in particular, it's not an easy pathway to status like district chief or things of that nature.
Well,
We've had to fight.
Again, I would beg to differ on that because, as you see, I haven't accomplished the rank of, well, the highest rank of that a firefighter can obtain, and that's deputy. Again, it's wanting to do it. It takes a lot to do it, a lot of sacrifice. A lot of firefighters have families, and believe me, it's not like any other profession where if you pass the exam, you're good.
Yeah.
You could pass the exam, but it's all predicated on how many positions are open at the time of the exam and everything like that. So again, like I said, it's not like, okay, you went to law school, you passed the bar, and now you're a lawyer.
That's right.
Yeah, you take the lieutenant's exam, and you're going against 200 other members, and there's 5 jobs.
Yeah, that's right.
That's it.
That's right. No, I appreciate that. Could I have one more follow-up question, Chair? Thank you. Now I'm curious about the residency. Do we know how many firefighters actually live in Boston that are on the force?
After 10 years, a firefighter that
understand.
invested that amount of time can move out of the city. The majority of our members are members that have come on, prior to 10 years. So I would say the majority of our firefighters work and live in the city.
That's great. That's good to hear. And I think it's important for people who are tuning in to know that fact, right? Because there is a perception that a lot of our public safety personnel check out. And so it really is comforting to know that the majority of our firefighters actually still live and serve in the city of Boston, which is not the case across the city. So I just want to commend you all for keeping your people here where they belong. But I also know with that folks have addresses to get in, and I don't know what we're doing about that. I know Councilor Flaherty, right? He was big on the mattress thing. What's it called? He had a whole, oh my God. Councilor Flaherty always talked about mattress address. Like there's some folks who really don't live in Boston, but they just use that little address just to get in here. And I think that there is a loophole that prevents city kids and city workers and city, Boston residents from occupying spaces that were really meant for them. And so I'm just curious, how are you all grappling with that?
So we have a great personnel department. I've been with the department for about 3 years. Prior to that, I was with the Boston Police Department, where we were able to work with the Recruit Investigations Unit. I think we contract with a former Boston police detective, usually Eddie Dominguez and his team, to do backgrounds, and so verifying residency, things of that nature, over the past 3 to 5 years has been very significant in terms of what we're doing, the information that we require of our applicants. Again, the 1 year prior to taking an exam, you can prove that. But if I'm a military veteran coming from a different city or town within Massachusetts, I only have 90 days from separation, so those things can be proven. Everyone is given a significant application and background investigation, and so I don't think, I'm not aware of any loophole or mattress address success rates at all for what we've done for the past 3 to 5 years.
Yeah, I'm away from my third round for the other questions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councilman Mejia. The chair recognizes Councilor Coletta Zapata. Councilor, you have the floor.
Thank you so much, Chair. How many women are serving now? I know about the fire cadet, but there's 9.
Yeah, currently about 28 active firefighters.
28, okay.
Yeah.
What was last year, 17?
I'm sorry?
It was 17 last year,
I
or?
think it was
28.
It was 28.
We have 8 in the academy.
Excellent,
So
okay,
we
so
had
that,
three graduate from the last academy, so now that number is increasing about every year.
progress.
And that's not factoring the 8 that we got in there now?
Well, I'm not factoring in the 8 that are currently in the academy because they still have to graduate, but we anticipate 8 more, and so.
36.
36.
Excellent, and that doesn't include administrative staff, or?
No.
No, okay. So that's 28 out of 16, 1,657, so that'll probably bring us to around 2 to 3%. Is that fair to say?
That's correct.
Okay. There has been progress, so I want to give kudos to all of you, and I don't know, again, what it's like to fight a fire. I do know what it was like to try to carry that hose, and it is difficult. That is to say that there are not women who are ready to do the job and strong enough. I had talked about trying to recruit from athletic teams and, various other entry points in the city of Boston. Can you just describe those efforts?
Yeah, absolutely. So there are a lot of amateur programs where if I'm at Moakley and I see a group of women playing rugby or soccer or some other physical activity, oftentimes we're able to do outreach directly and saying, hey, have you ever thought about being a firefighter? Going to CrossFit gyms. Again, this is a physically demanding job, so those that are inclined to want to work out and want to get stronger, those are the candidates that we look for. The cadet program in particular, again, technically we have 2 years from them hiring to prepare them for an academy class. So we look at that. There are requirements. They work out. They're required to work out once or twice a week with our Health and Ladders, which is part of the Safety, Health, and Wellness, or the certified trainers that we have within the department, getting stronger, and there's curriculum that's helping them to get stronger. They go through evolutions that help them to understand the function of being a firefighter and the technical skills that it takes in order to do that particular job. So we feel like we have a pretty good handle on preparing cadets to be firefighters. Even with the hybrid program, we would look at fitness tests and assessments that would ensure that all of our candidates were ready to go into an academy, as opposed to, again, the 2 years that we would have to prepare a candidate to be able to tackle the academy curriculum.
Thank you, and thank you for your work. This is a topic that is of interest, and I'm very passionate about it, so thank you for that.
Thank you.
And every firehouse has a women's bathroom.
They do.
Okay,
Yes,
excellent.
they do.
Last year I had asked about medical response versus fire response and trying to get a ratio on that. I understand that the fire department also responds to medical emergencies. I didn't know if you had those numbers sussed out.
No, we didn't. We'd have to get them from the dispatcher.
Okay. Through the chair, I would like to request those numbers. How many alarms is each firehouse staffed up to?
Could you repeat that?
How many alarms? 9.
9. Okay,
Yes.
so what does that translate into fire persons in the house at any given time?
How many? What is it? What did you say?
How many folks are in a firehouse, like on staff at any given time?
So this, depending on how many trucks are in the house, the firehouse would have 8 people if there's 2 trucks in there, 12 if there's 3 trucks. So you're talking, if it goes to 9 alarms, well over 100 firefighters would be on scene.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's at every minute of every day? That's what it's staffed
absolutely.
up to?
Yeah, so the incident commander would decide in the conditions at a fire whether he's going to another alarm. 2 is very common, but once you start going past 3 and 4, things aren't going too well, so you need a lot of help. So.
And that's a standard that is regulated by state law, or is that just
No,
a city?
that's our department does it that way.
Okay,
Yeah.
is that consistent with other municipalities that you staffed up to 9?
They went to 10 alarms in parts of the state. They went higher. For mutual aid coverage, I believe was the reason for it. So they could get people from other cities and towns, which we don't really rely on because of the size of our department.
Okay, thank you. I'm looking at Plan Charlestown, which was the major planning initiative that just took place, which you took part of, so
Yep.
thank you. There were a few fire operation needs that they had outlined, one of which being a potential fire district chief. Charlestown is part of District 3, and I'm reading directly from this document. It's part of District 3, and the individual, excuse me, I just want to make sure that I have this right. So there was going to be an assessment made within the next couple of years that based on the call volume and Charlestown's population or projected population growth, that there was going to potentially be another assessment made for a district chief to be in Charlestown. Has that been made? Is that on your radar? If not?
No, not currently. No, I mean, there was a proposal, when there was a proposal for the soccer stadium that I was involved in, and I believed there should be a chief over there and another firehouse with another Marine unit if that soccer stadium is built. Because the isolation of Charlestown, they have one exit off the highway and one bridge, the Washington Street Bridge, and I don't believe it's accessible enough. You'd be relying on other departments, Somerville and Everett, to come over. And you put a venue that has 40, 50,000 people in it right on the edge of our city. We need more people there. And ultimately, with mutual aid, it's the biggest department in the state, which is us, that would have to respond. So I don't want to leave Charlestown unprotected and bring people to another city or town that adjoins it, because there's a big venue there. So I believe that there should be another firehouse with a chief and a boat there because of the marine traffic.
Right. There's been a lot of discussion about public safety in general in my district, with an island in East Boston and a peninsula in Charlestown, and the North End, I understand, needs some love with their firehouse as well. So this is something that I've brought forth to our capital budget hearings, just calling it out and saying that we need it, especially for emergency services, and taking what you have to say very seriously about a new firehouse and just making sure that it's in the capital budget. So long as I'm counselor, that will be something that I continue to advocate for in partnership with all of you. So thank you.
Thank you.
Councilor Coletta Zapata. Go to Councilor colleagues for third round of questions. I'm assuming if everyone is here, that they have a third round. If not, the chair recognizes Councilor Flynn. Councilor, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I do want to be respectful to everybody, but I do want to stress the important role our disabled veterans that are firefighters play in our city and in our country as well. I just want us to acknowledge their sacrifice and their commitment to the residents of Boston in the country, and I do that because I have seen them demonstrate their commitment to the residents, and I do want to make sure that they have an opportunity, and other veterans as well have an opportunity to become firefighters if they choose. And I do think we have to provide an opportunity for them, a welcoming opportunity for them as well. So I guess my question, Mr. Gaskins, is how can we ensure that veterans and disabled veterans are also included in recruitment as well? I do want to make sure that they are part of the process, they are part of the conversation, and what are we going to do short-term and long-term to ensure that veterans and disabled veterans are part of the conversation?
Well, we're ongoing. I mean, we do information sessions specifically for veterans groups, for military recruiters, remote sessions, so those that are serving abroad are able to join us remotely as well. We're going to continue to recruit the best and brightest from across the city and the state. I'll also make mention that we have cadets that are veterans and disabled veterans, so there are other pipelines that they can readily take advantage of. And so we don't think of that outreach and that recruitment any differently. We know that there are very capable, very talented veterans that are out there, and we'll look to recruit them equally.
Do you see any challenges as that you have encountered, whether it's working closely with someone coming out of the military, do you see any challenges that potentially raise any red flags that you have seen where it may prevent the fire department from not going forward? Is that, I just want to get an idea of what you're thinking in terms of how we're communicating with veterans and to ensure that we address some of the challenges that they might be facing as well.
Some of the challenges in particular are for veterans as opposed to disabled veterans. If I'm a veteran and I take the civil service test and I score a 99, and I'm a disabled veteran and I score a 70, that disabled veteran is ranked higher than the veteran. So that can be a challenge in and of itself. Through civil service, we can continue to work and figure out fairness, figure out ways that wouldn't impact somebody in a negative way. But again, if a veteran approaches the department through the hybrid pathway, we would have an opportunity to perhaps reach that particular person through our vetting process, as opposed to never being reached with a veteran status.
Okay, thank you. And I do want to kind of focus and kind of shift the conversation somewhat back towards the budget. I do think we're here for the budget and what we're going to be voting on shortly. What is the status of the apparatus, the trucks? What is the status in terms of how old are they? Is there any challenges that we have with the apparatus, with the engines, fixing them, maintaining them, and at some point, when will we have a significant investment to ensure we have the state-of-the-art equipment?
I think we're there now. We've been a program where we get 3 engines and 2 ladders every year. That's been going on for probably the last 10 years. So the objective was to cycle out the older apparatus that we have as spares. So now the spares are now the new manufacturer, the Emergency One. And I think that the maintenance squad does a great job maintaining this apparatus. If there's anything that they can't tackle, that it goes to the manufacturer. We had a period there where we had a bad manufacturer and it didn't go well, and we got rid of those. So I think right now we're in a great position. The only thing we're looking at now is a slowdown in the supply chain, which is happening to every fire apparatus manufacturer nationwide. So, but that's just recently. Up to now, we've been getting 3 engines, 2 ladders every year, and it's been working out great.
Commissioner, I agree with you. I think we should have a state-of-the-art headquarters, fire department headquarters, similar to the Boston Police Department headquarters. I think that should be a priority, whether it's this budget or next budget. But I think that process has to begin with even a small amount of money be allocated into the budget to begin the process of getting a design for a new fire department. As you know, I respect the fire department, and I think you'll probably agree with me on this one, Commissioner. The current building is obsolete. It's broken, and in my opinion, I don't want to embarrass anybody, but it is embarrassing having a fire headquarters, the best fire department in the country, being in such a lousy building, in my opinion only. Again, I'm not criticizing anybody. But I think it's up to the city council to advocate for fairness for a fire department headquarters. Mr. Chair, I don't have any further questions. Thank you to the fire department team that's here.
Thank you, Council. Recognizes Council Weber. Council, you have the floor.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for everyone for being here to testify, talk to us. I do think, in terms of the numbers on diversity and hiring of women, it's not really what we'd like to see. At least it's not what I would like to see. So as long as those numbers are like this, I think you should be prepared to answer questions, and you have. Thank you for taking those questions. For women in general, is it an issue of people not coming out to try to apply for those positions? Do we need to do a better job of that? Is there, is there just like a physical barrier? Like and just looking up some of the numbers, I mean, this is not Boston, Boston's problem only. New York City, I think it's 2% of the fire department firefighters are women, and it's in a city with very similar diversity numbers. I think it's even less in terms of diversity of their firefighters. So I'm not suggesting there's any special issue here, but what are we doing to promote more women to come out? And we've talked about this with women in the trades and getting more hours. So what's the barrier, and how do we increase that number?
I think one of the barriers is definitely interest. This is a grueling job, and so you have to want to do this type of work. The fitness part of it is another part of it, so you have to be willing to work toward getting stronger and being able to handle the equipment, things of that nature. So there are some of those barriers. I will say that if you're comparing, say, New York or other institutions, they might have higher numbers of women that might be working for the force, but they have joint EMS or EMT kind of programming. So you might have a lot of women that are firefighters, but they may be assigned to the ambulance or something of that nature. Whereas if you're here, BFD, they're all firefighters. So that's some of the barriers that we see. Even in the cadet applications, if we get, say, 185 applications, we might only receive applications from maybe 10 women. So it's consistent with outreach, is consistent. But again, we try to do our best. When I was with BPD, we saw low numbers of women having interest in being police officers. When I left BPD, we had a record number of women going into an academy class. With BFD now, we have a record number of women going into an academy class. So I think there's a trend there in terms of having leadership with interest in outreach, and now making those connections and just working with the public and the community on making sure women understand that this is a profession that they can pursue and be good at.
And then just back to the budget on maintenance. I think it was from 24 to 25, the maintenance budget went down from like 14 million to 9 million. Was there any impact that you could, I guess, for the commissioner or anyone else, that change had in terms of our ability to get trucks out there, or
Well, the fleet of apparatus, like I just spoke of, is pretty new, so the maintenance is limited on that. I think the buildings, according to Councilor Flynn, they could use the maintenance. I mean, they've been neglected a long time. You wouldn't see that unless you were a firefighter at the interior of the building. So I think that's where the big loss is. The firehouses are so old. I mean, we've had so few of them built. We're trying to renovate them and bring them up. So I would think we'd have to put a couple renovations on hold because of the budget on that. So but that's where I see it, as the buildings, not the apparatus, not the staffing levels.
Okay, but is that capital? I mean, like when I look at the maintenance line item, is that the apparatus only?
So the maintenance line that you see in the regular operating budget does cover the routine repairs within a firehouse, and that's how we're dealing with the industrial cleaning component that I spoke of earlier with the cleaning of the vents. But because of what the commissioner just said, the average age of the entire building, buildings within the Boston Fire Department is about 72 years. So they are a very older building, and through whatever reason, they have not been maintained the way that they should have, whether it's deferred maintenance or budget issues in the past. And the facilities team now is working really diligently to use any operating money to address concerns as they come up, to kind of offset the difference between capital improvements and just painting and providing a safe environment for the firefighters that live there.
Okay. Thank you, Chair. I appreciate the third round.
Thank you, Council Weber. The chair recognizes Council Mejia. Council, you have the floor.
Thank you, thank you. And, I wanted to I didn't start off with my gratitude for you and the work that you do, so I just want to acknowledge that. I dove right in, but just want to thank you all for your service. I know it is not easy, and when I think about public safety, you all are always putting your lives on the line for us, and I also participated in the training, and as little as I am, I know how difficult it is for anyone to carry anything up the ladder or even the fire hose. So I want to acknowledge that while we're hoping to increase diversity efforts, I also know that I understand some of the limitations, but I think that that's where the opportunity lies to really pour into more recruitment and diversity efforts to increase so that women can see themselves in these positions too. So I'm not saying that if I could do it because I didn't, I think y'all had to help me get out I was like freaking out, but anyways, I want to acknowledge that I understand that. And so I wanted to just quickly loop back to one of my earlier questions because I think it was misunderstood. As I was talking, I was not talking about the year to date around some of the expenditures. I was really talking more about the change in the allocations. So for example, from FY 2025, the projected budget, and FY26, we saw a decrease of 29% for training. That was his time. Don't try to trick me. Reset. And so we saw we're seeing a decrease of 29% in training, and I'm just curious how this has had any impact on improving the working culture and making it more inviting to women and people of color if we're decreasing training by 29%. And then fire prevention saw a decrease of 5.7, fire alarms 7.6, maintenance saw 4.9, and fire suppression saw 6.3. So I'm just still curious, kind of, if you could help me understand that. And then I also would love to know, and this is more on the diversity front, I'd like to know how many of the top earners are people of color or women, and what that dollar amount looks like if you happen to have it. I'm also curious about how many top earners actually live in the city of Boston, and how many are exempt from the residency requirements.
So I don't have data on the top earners and the breakdown, but again, that'll be something that I can kind of generate for you. What's important to note is all that's public information, so you could definitely look at some of our top earners. Some of our top earners are part of those elite squads that I referred to earlier. But we could definitely try to generate a report. That's not something that the department would necessarily archive, and we don't necessarily archive that information in terms of based on demographics, but we can try to give you some general information about that.
Yeah, so that would be helpful to me. And while I do appreciate that the information is public, I think it's also as part of these budget hearings, it's helpful to have a sense from you all in terms of what your benchmarks are. How are you measuring success around some of the recruitment and retention and financial wealth building for women and people of color as part of our time together? So I want to know, for the record, Councilor Chair, that I'd like to get that information as well. And you don't have any data in terms of how many top earners are actually live in the city of Boston? We don't know that either.
We wouldn't do a direct correlation to that because again, after 10 years, you're free to move outside of the city. That's a
or even 3 to 5
investment.
years. How many who are 3 to 5 years?
It'd be difficult to generate that kind of report because because everyone can do a detail. Everyone can. The way that people are paid additional from their base salary is doing a detail. So let's say an apartment complex their central panel goes down, which is their central panel alarm goes down, a firefighter can be detailed to that location overnight just in case, because again, there's no way of alerting that building in terms of, something going on.
So anyone could, you opt into it, or do you get chosen to do it?
There's a detail office where
But you get
if
opted
they
into it? Or
provide.
do you do it because you want to? Or does it go by who's on deck and who, by seniority? Like,
Do it because you want to.
Yeah.
so it's all because you
You
want
do
to?
it because you want, yeah. In certain instances, you could have that type of detail. If there's welding going on, construction, things of that nature, you have those types of details. So a firefighter schedules, you work one day, you're off 2. You work one day, you're off 4. So between those 2 days and 4 days, you can opt into details.
What's the average salary for a firefighter?
Average salary is about $138,000. That's the average salary. So
What's
we
the
have some.
max of you seen?
Again, I haven't looked
500,000?
at that Boston Globe kind of annual report yet, but I think usually some of our higher earners could be upwards of $300,000. And again, that's.
And they never broke that down by race or gender?
No, you literally have to go in and look at the person and then look at.
Would that be an exercise worth doing?
I don't know if there's a direct correlation or if the data would necessarily be a narrative for anything in particular. You have to want to work. You have to want to opt into those details. And so, again, it would be an interesting exercise. I don't know that I particularly would have time to do that, but we'll do our best to get as much information to you as possible.
Yeah, that would be helpful, just because at least we don't know what we don't know, but if we start off with a benchmark, then we can start figuring out where are the gaps that we need to fill, and maybe that could help support with our recruitment and even inspire other people to be like, oh my God, you can make up to $300,000. I'm just talking from a marketing standpoint. I'm not saying, I'm just letting you know, this is motivational. Like for some people who are trying to pay their mortgage or whatever, you let them know that this is a career that actually can help you pay your mortgage.
Yeah, I will say we include that in our info sessions when we go out to a school. In particular, a lot of firefighters that you're familiar with on a personal basis, that they would share about how much income they've earned. But again, these are sacrifices that you make within your family if you're going to make above and beyond what your base salary is. You will take time away from your family, even for promotional exams. You take time for your family in order to study for those particular exams.
And I don't know if any of you all are familiar with the Balkans or are members of the Balkans, but I want to say that in terms of your recruitment and just showing up, it is really great to see men of color in particular in some of our Boston public schools and part of the recruitment fairs, because young people in particular see themselves reflected, and that is motivation in itself that they see. And so I just want to acknowledge that all the fairs that I've been to and city events, it is so great to see your force out in these streets, if you will, really working at recruiting and showing up, and I just want to acknowledge that. It is, I know that this is also a profession very similar to having grown up here in the city of Boston, that you never know what you don't know, and if it's a family affair, oftentimes you see a lot of firefighters, and I've seen a few firefighters of color now who their children are signing up to enter the field. So I think we're moving in the right direction, and so we want to make sure that we continue to support your budget so that increases that capacity, because I think since I've been on the council, that has been an area that I have been deeply committed to making sure that we increase diversity efforts. And so thank you for that work.
Thank you for your commitment.
And thank you for being here. And thank you, Councilor, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Mejia. We do not have anyone else signed up for public testimony. Again, just want to thank this panel, all the firefighters out there that serve the city of Boston. Want to thank Local 718 for your representation. I want to thank my council colleagues for all their great questions and their advocacy for firefighters, including increasing the diversity and also focusing on mental health and wellness for our firefighters. I want to thank my team, central staff, all my council colleagues and their team. And again, thank you to all the brave men and women of the fire department and also the families that serve alongside them. And with that, the hearing on dockets number 0822 through 0830 is adjourned.